Hey, welcome to All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. We are here tonight. It is election eve. Oh man,
Yes.
I don't know about y'all. I'm nervous. Are we gonna do it
Yeah.
again? Like I'm just like, and I'm
Fight
gonna
that
repeat this
devil.
over and over again tonight, man.
Yeah.
Does America hate black people more than it loves the institution of the United States of America? Do you love the Constitution? Do you hate black people? I'm not sure which it is, right?
They gave us a 240-year answer.
A 240-year answer.
Yeah,
What does
the
that
domestic
mean,
slave
Sonny?
United States.
I do not know. Well, we know that
The domestic slave trade was 240
oh,
years.
absolutely, right. But that would be a cynical answer. I'm hoping they've changed. I'm hoping there's something different. I'm hoping that it is not what it was, man. But we've got a really great show lined up for you tonight. We have in this first hour is a tribute to the Payne report. We have Eric Payne on. We will have Leroy Jones, the chair of the Democratic Party, on as well. We will have the Orange Mayor, Dwayne Warren, also on. This is a huge tribute to former Congressman Donald Payne, our friend who was on our show for many years and passed away recently. And we know how important this election was to him. He talked about it all the time. He talked about Trump, talked about this election, talked about it in the last one. I know that this one meant a lot to him. So he pledged to make sure that we would talk about this election through this election during the Payne report, during this Payne report tribute. And this is going to be, this is it, man. This is what we've been waiting for, leading up to. This is election day. We're going to have a lot of election day themes tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to have Dr. Joseph L. Jones on. He's the executive director of the W.E.B. Du Bois Southern Center for the Study of Public Policy and a professor at Clark Atlanta University. And he'll be discussing his new book, Black, Not Historically Black, Towards a Pan-Black College and University. And he's going to be talking about his take on the election as well. Like last week, we heard from Dr. Kelly Harris. This week, we're hearing from Dr. Joseph Jones, because to some extent, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I can't understand this and what's going on without some appeal to deeper theory, right? Like stuff that's been going on. And we're going to get all into it. And we're looking forward to that conversation at 7. But we need some explanations, man. We need some. For this, we need theorists, philosophers, preachers. We need a lot of people to break down what's going on. Yeah. Absolutely. And at 7:45, we're going to be talking again, choosing hope or hate. We're going to have a conversation with award-winning filmmaker and television producer Lisa Durden. We're going to be having a conversation with Maxim Thorne, who's the chief executive officer of Civic Influencers. It's an organization that is charged with getting the vote out. We're also going to have Brittney Claybrooks on, former East Orange Councilwoman and the former North Jersey political director for U.S. Senate candidate Andy Kim, and they'll be talking about their take on Election Day as well. And we're going to round it off with DJ Rhino in the state of hip hop. And we'll be talking. I'm sure these conversations will flow all the way through. It's all everyone's talking about. It's all everyone's thinking about right now in this heated election season.
So let's go ahead and welcome Eric Payne to the show, who's been filling in for the congressman, and just want to thank Eric for riding with us these last few months. It's been absolutely great. We got to keep Eric from getting fired up, because every time he get fired up, he goes southward on us. So we gotta make sure we hold him back. I don't know about tonight.
Get fired up, Gary. Get fired up, goddamn.
I can only represent from where I'm from, man. My original home.
and we also want to welcome Leroy Jones, the New Jersey Democratic chair of the Democratic Party, who has joined us in the House. Hello to both of you.
All right.
How you feeling?
You're on mute, Mr. Chairman. You're still on mute.
What's up, my brothers?
There you go.
Good. How's that? That's better?
There you go.
That's great.
Hey, look, this is a busy time of year, so but I wasn't gonna miss being with you guys. So,
Right on.
You know, I'm looking
Thank
forward to good shows. You know, Jonathan, sounds like you guys are going to be on for the rest of the night with with all those people you got coming on. But I'm gonna shut up, let Eric do his thing, and then you guys pivot back to me when it's time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Leroy Jones is, you've got to talk about your history a little bit, bro, because you've been around for a while and you've,
I
many
have
of these,
not been around that long, Eric.
not as long as me. I've been around a little bit too, and I'm saying this because you've gone through the process. You know what it takes to win. You know what it takes for us to have effective government, and the fact that you were around with some of the people that you're around with, Phil, Thigpen primarily, I'm thinking of, and a whole bunch of other people that that you're able to kind of baton runner, as we all are, and so. For me, this election reminds me of, and I think a lot of young people wonder whether things are going to get better when they grow up. When I was a kid, one of the first images I remember is the image of Emmett Till in Jet magazine, his mutilated body. And I thought that as time went on, that things would be better. And here I am in my 64th year around the sun, I'll say that. And to see that this country has reverted back to a very basic form of supremacy by a group of people is disheartening. And it shows me that there are individuals who never planned for this America, this democracy, to work out the way that they wrote down on paper. And the paper was the document, but actually how they were living was a little bit different. And to me, when you talk about all men are created equal, when you have human beings just across the way, probably in a barn, being kept as if they were cattle or animals, chattel slavery, how then can we take your words serious? And so when we hear of these people, the Republicans on the other side, are the people that other Americans that say they support a guy who's, to me, is pretty despicable actions. And so how can I take you seriously? How can I take your claims seriously when I watch your actions? And so, like they say, don't listen to the old saying, don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. And so that's why we must be vigilant in getting to the vote. A lot of young people are talking about, why should I vote? It's not going to change anything. It does change things. And just because of the fact that people died for your rights, this is the continuum of the freedom of our people. And each one of us has a mission and a job to do. When I chose to do other things with my life and follow a dream that I had, always realized and always knew that wherever I was, my first allegiance was to my people. Maybe it was because of the way I was born or the family I was born into or the individuals that are my parents and the family and the community from which I came from. And so as I see that how this country and the fact that we're at this point, that we still haven't gotten past that White has to the presidential candidate, a Democratic presidential candidate since the Civil Rights Act. We haven't won the white vote since that totally. And basically what I see, and Leroy knows better than I do, is that we have a majority of America that can really tip the election one way or the other, that, we're still in the minority. White people are still the majority. So at the end of the day, I think that it depends on how a large part of the white population feels about our country, and whether we really believe in democracy and whether we really have individuals who see people in the content of the character. And so I think there's no clearer example now. When I moved to Maplewood after the riots, what I found was there were varying degrees of people, of people that were the other race. Some were racist light, some were prejudice tolerant, some were intolerant. And so it went various levels depending on how, whether they're active, whether they're going to be active about dissing black people and making black people's lives, whether they never really cared about black people, didn't want to be around them, or whether they never just thought about it, or whether they were real human beings and joined into the thing to believe that all people are created equal. That's what I've learned. There are varying degrees of people. But the one thing I've learned that's remained constant is that when people come together, when they're able to sit, fellowship, come together, just even talk, I think that that bridge gets built a little bit better. So I'm going to stop. That's just my soapbox.
So I have a question, right? Because everyone's like, is this going to happen again? Mr. Jones, you organize, right? What's going on in Pennsylvania right now? What's going on in these states right now? And from your vantage point, right? Like, I'm sure you're talking to people. I'm sure you've talked to people in Pennsylvania. What's going on a grassroots level? What do you feel like? What do you see? Tell us something, right? Because right now everybody's anxious. Every time I get another text, I'm giving another $20. I'm giving another $25, right? To somebody. Michelle asked for money, I'm giving money to Michelle, right? Barack asked for money, I'm giving money to Barack, right? So what's going on, man?
So, Jonathan and Eric, let me just say that, that was a really good segue to to where we are in this country, and your perspective is very well was very well laid out, and and much appreciated, and I'm hoping that the viewing and listening community had paid attention to it. But what's going on in Pennsylvania now, and I've had the opportunity to have developed a relationship over the years with the Democratic state chair there. His name is Sharif Street. Sharif is also a state senator from Philadelphia, and his dad used to be mayor of Philadelphia back in the day.
I didn't understand.
Right now, right now,
Yes, I remember him.
right now, Philly, and Pennsylvania is at a heightened point. As that's one of seven battleground states, swing states, whatever you want to call them, targeted states, and the mobilization has been intense. It has been focused. And it has been a joint effort from other states, New Jersey, and the folk, my municipal chair, Montclair, Brendan Gill, they mobilize every Saturday, sending, troops to Pennsylvania to door knock and to canvass. The canvasses, from what I'm hearing, are going extremely, well. The response is good. You see the polling, and the polling, is tight. It's going to be tight all over, because you have, this, everything that Eric just mentioned, has been emboldened, by Donald Trump, where people feel it's, now okay to show their true colors, which is, reeks of racism, and that's a fight. And you're going to see pockets of communities, that demonstrate that, and when you drill down, to the strategies of it all, the Republicans are not, or the MAGA people, because I don't want to say, it's all Republicans, because there's a moderate group out there, that really don't subscribe to, um, the Donald Trump philosophy, his hate, or his his venom that he spews. Their approach is now not so much a state by state, but it is county by county. So they really focus on those counties that have a embrace that whole MAGA, Project 2025, agenda, and and that's what we're trying to counter, with those stronger counties or those stronger states holistically that see hope, in a future in Kamala Harris. So. So in addition to Pennsylvania, and I don't want to just leave that, although that is a, a key state, you have 6 other states out there: North Carolina, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, that are all in play. Michigan is looking, a little solid, pretty solid for, Kamala. But and North Carolina, we've been, through our state committee and various volunteers, we've had an extensive phone banking into North Carolina, as well as text banking. So it's been all hands on deck in New Jersey. And as much as we're a blue state, we felt the need to be partners with states that share borders, and states that are on the critical side to engage.
And I said, and I love that, because part of me was worried. I'm like, look, it's Pennsylvania. It's right next door. Like, are there, if you are, you said that there's a group in Montclair that's going to Pennsylvania to help.
Yeah.
If you're in New Jersey and you just want to be like, hey, I need to get to Pennsylvania. I need to be like hanging out in Philly on Sunday and Monday. Is there like an organization? Is there, who do you call?
So so the Montclair Dems, have been pretty active with that. I think Larry, who I see is on, knows that as well. There's, you can call, my state committee, and they can direct you. But look, we're down into the final days of this election, and there's still tons of work to be done here in New Jersey. There is congressional races that are very critical. Particularly CD7, where you have Sue Altman, the Democrat, going against Tom Kaine Jr. And the reason that is so critical is because
It's a
that will
close one.
determine perhaps who the next speaker of the House of Representatives is. And Hakeem Jeffries is positioned right now to become the next speaker. So if we concentrate heavily and hopefully win CD7, which is a Republican leaning congressional district, we get closer to a Hakeem Jeffries speakership, along with that in itself will make history, along with making history with Kamala Harris.
Now,
Leroy,
there's some,
Leroy,
so,
can I ask you a question? Because I was going to ask the question about that district, and I know Sue well. We've had her on the show here, and I'm looking forward to her coming back as Congresswoman elect. Sue, do you now at the same time she's running against an old money Republican who has shifted ridiculously to the right? It makes him, I would dare say, almost politically irrecognizable from his father, who's a moderate Republican, strong on civil rights and education. Some of us have had company with him, right?
Yeah.
Can Sue win? What do we need to pull that victory off in that district?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing, Ty, that we're talking about Pennsylvania. We need boots on the ground for Sue. We need voices on the phone for Sue. We need thumbs, clicking phones for texting. All that is key, for a good Democratic turnout. I do believe that that there, we're going to see some crossover from some moderate Republicans. Because they've come to know that Tom Kaine Jr. is not like his father. It's not going to be a situation where the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. In this particular case, that apple is that apple is probably a little bit rotten to the core. He's not impressed me at all. He's come off, like the proverbial empty suit. He doesn't talk to folks like, us. He doesn't engage in forums like this. He's just, he's just a disappointment. I'm sad to say, but all that that I just mentioned, will hopefully help Sue, run through the tape and become the Congresswoman elect and can come back on this show and talk about the things that she's going to do in representing that district. But that is a key district to a Hakeem Jeffries speakership.
That's a. I'm sorry, Jonathan. You're muted.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, because the difference is by like what is it now? 4 votes in Congress that separates the Democrats from the Republicans. And
Yeah,
we
I
kind
mean,
of estimate that this is gonna be like Democrats can literally flip the House and are looking to flip the House Democrat, and they don't need a lot of wins in order to do it.
no. Now, I mean, we're hoping and praying, but as some pastors have said, you can't pray them in, you can't hope them in, you gotta vote them in. So
Right.
That's for sure. It reminds me of the reason why we need to get out and vote. I would be remiss if I didn't say hello to the great Larry Ham. My father told me that's a great man right there. And Mr. Ham, how are you, sir?
How you doing? How you doing, Brother Payne? And Chairman Jones?
hey Larry,
How you
Larry, I
doing,
just
man?
got the email. You just got the email. You're gonna be out, in front of the Lincoln statue tomorrow.
That's right.
Anti-Trump rally, making sure that we rev up the troops, for those
That's
final
right.
days of voting. And
That's right.
we got 3 more days of or 2 more days of early vote. And then 1 more day to wrap it all up on Tuesday, November 5th. So I hope folks are able to join Larry, and the People's Organization for Progress, at the Lincoln statue. I think it's at 12 o'clock. I'm stealing Larry's thunder, man.
Go ahead. You're doing a good job. Go ahead.
So I'm up on it, man. So
Yes, sir.
make sure that she gets those emails to me all the time, man. So
That's right. We got to have a united front to defeat fascism, to defeat Trump.
yes, sir. And,
Look. When the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff,
yes,
the supreme commander of the United States military, tells you that Donald Trump is a fascist to the core, you better believe him.
yes.
I ran into Millie back in I think it was April or May. I was at Princeton. I was speaking to a class at Princeton, and I was leaving the class, and guess who I run into at the Woodrow Wilson School? General Milley. And he ran into me. I had on my pop shirt, my pop sweatshirt. So, his eyes came over there. So we walked towards each other and we started talking, and he didn't tell me at that moment that Trump was a fascist, but his remarks indicated to me that he clearly understood what he was dealing with. In fact, we ran into each other right after that Atlantic Monthly magazine article came out. And in that article, he said that Trump was a fascist. So when all of that went public, I was not really surprised. But we have a serious challenge in this country, and that is why the People's Organization for Progress is saying to people, we got to defeat Trump and we got to elect Harris Walz. And believe me, I have some problems with some of the positions on some of the issues, particularly the issue of Gaza is a genocidal war, and people don't want to talk about it. We're violating domestic law and international law. But there are other issues and other considerations, and so we don't want a fascist in office because we'll have a harder time dealing with him. So I wrote up a piece. I don't know if you saw what I wrote, Leroy. It's appeared in several places, but urging people Number one, not to sit this election out. Number two, to vote for Harris-Walz. And number three, to continue to struggle after November 5th, because we're not going to know. We may not know November 5th what the results are.
Yeah.
And Trump has given every indication that there's no satisfactory outcome for him other than his victory. So we can expect, you know, a rerun of the attempted coup of January 6, 2021.
Absolutely.
And ironically, January 6th is the day again for the certification of the election. That's that. You know, are we gonna get a rewind of what happened a few years ago? That's a serious question.
Well, you heard Trump at Madison Square. You heard him at Madison Square Garden, right?
For sure.
Did y'all listen to the rally? There was a point in the rally where he turned. I don't know if, I guess Mike Johnson was there, right?
Yes.
He turned to Mike Johnson and he said, "Oh, we got a secret. We got something, you know, I can't talk about it now, but we got something. We got a secret for the election, you know." So they, you know, Pence refused to do what Trump wanted him to do, which was not to certify the electoral college vote. Mike Johnson was part of the conspiracy. Mike Johnson was one of the originators of the idea to reject the certification. So he got Johnson as speaker. He doesn't have Pence, but now he has J.D. Vance. Now, a year ago, J.D. Vance, or 2 years ago, J.D. Vance said that Trump was America's Hitler. Now, all of a sudden, he's the vice president. So you could expect that Vance, if they tried to do this thing again, that they have people in place. They have people in place. But I think we can come out in record numbers like we did. We got to come out in record numbers like we did in 20. We got to beat them in the electoral college, and we got to beat them in the popular vote.
For sure. And if you notice, Larry, I'm glad you mentioned about the turnout. The turnout, you know, in New Jersey, you know, has been exceptional. You know, and that's you know, across the state. But in Essex County, you know, we've turned out exceptionally well. You know, and you know, that's both vote by mail and on the early vote. You know, I think you know, I just got a text earlier today. You know, or you know, like right before we got on, and you know, there's like 7,000 people that voted in Essex County today alone. So you know, that trend has been you know, getting better each day, and I think the least you know, the least of the turnout was maybe Wednesday, and you know, that was like 6,800 people. So there's been lines here. You know, that's a good sign. At the start of it, I know Georgia was turning out, you know, pretty strong in the early vote. Pennsylvania's early vote ended, you know, yesterday or the day before. So, you know, so now we're just counting on finishing up with, you know, their vote by mail and, you know, hopefully a big turnout, you know, in, you know, the blue areas of PA on Tuesday.
So Pennsylvania's early voting is over now. They didn't have this last weekend.
Yeah, they've concluded with their early voting.
Okay, man. So how does that look like in PA? Did Philadelphia come out in mass? Did the areas that needed to come out in mass come out in mass? Or do you have an idea of that information for Pennsylvania? And I know no one knows what's going to happen on Tuesday, but you know, we nervous.
I might have a little bit of a strain on my internet. You know, you guys know I'm doing this from the car.
Okay. We just asked.
Yeah, I was going to. Yeah, Jonathan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just asked in terms of turnout and like the areas of Pennsylvania that need to turn out, and their early voting, how did that look? Did that look like, oh, you just came out. So, so Larry, I'm gonna have a question for you, right? Question I have for you is, what happens on what happens like on the 6th of November, the day after the election, when it's like people are funny stuff is starting to happen. They're starting to contest. They're trying to throw votes out in Philadelphia. What advice do you have for when the shenanigans that would be the shenanigans happen? What is your prediction of that? What do you think of that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're going to have problems after the 6th. Trump is not going to accept defeat, and his people are going to do whatever they can at the state level to try to interfere with the vote, to try to interfere with the Electoral College. They have a multi-pronged strategy. So the Democratic Party, fortunately, has people, the Democratic Party and its allies have lawyers in every state to challenge legally whatever the Trump people are trying to do. They already filing lawsuits. They in fact, down in Georgia, what they tried to do was get the electoral board to pass some voter repression procedures, and the lawyers went into court, and the court threw out what the Georgia Electoral Board wanted to do, the Elections Board wanted to do. They threw those things out. So they're already trying to interfere at the state level. This is why Kamala Harris has to win the electoral vote and the popular vote. Some people are saying, well, the popular vote is not that important. Why is it important? Because if she does not win the popular vote, the Trump people are going to use that as a weapon to try to delegitimize her victory. They're going to try. I mean, they've already been churning the big lie, right? That the system is rigged and so on and so forth. So she needs to win big in the popular vote, and of course, she can't be president unless she wins the Electoral College. So I would say this: Leroy could speak. Chairman Jones could speak in a more informed way than I can on what the Democratic Party is doing. But I would say this: if it looks like there's going to be some serious trouble regarding the outcome of the election, we should take to the streets. People all over the country should engage in massive pro-democracy demonstrations. We should not let them steal this election, because that's what they're trying to do. They're going to try to seize power any way that they can. What they especially want to do is muddy the waters with regard to the Electoral College so that the election can be thrown into representatives. Because even if even if Democrats elect a new majority, those members are not going to be seated on January 6th. Mm-hmm. The Republicans are still going to be in control of the House. And if they can in some way interfere with the Electoral College, the Constitution says that the House of Representatives must decide the election. And it's not based on one representative, one vote. It's based on one state, one vote. So even though New Jersey has what, Chairman Jones, 12 congressional representatives, 12 House members in New Jersey,
12 House
they
members.
will vote. They will cast one vote if
we lost it. But that's the Trump secret that he was alluding to in the garden. That's exactly what he was talking about. If they can tie it up and bring it to a case where it is the Congress that ultimately has the last say, they have the deck stacked rigged already for that to happen, and that to be the way to ride Trump in, regardless of the outcome and numbers of the actual election. I backed you up.
Thank you.
Now, one question. I thought that Congress sat early. I thought that Congress comes back first, and that in January, it's not the old Congress that comes, it's the new Congress, because they have to be sworn in the first 3 days of January. I thought it was the new Congress that does that. I don't think you can still hear me, but I because that would mean that, because if it is the new Congress, that means that this race becomes really important. Even the race you're talking about in New Jersey becomes pivotal in terms of who controls Congress after the November election.
Yeah, but you know, John, what I also heard I was watching Morning Joe this morning, and what I heard was that one of the things they were saying, the secret was that they didn't necessarily need 720 electoral college votes. They were saying that if they could get to 520, right, that they would automatically say that Trump was the winner, right? So they didn't need all 7 of those swing states. So that's what Mika and them were saying this morning, that Trump and them are trying to organize, or that they've already started organizing, right? So, you remember last time around, he wound up calling, what was it, North Carolina? He called for a certain number of votes. So, they've already figured out what they're going to do, because just like Larry said, Trump is not going to accept losing under no cost. And if that means lying and saying that, he doesn't have, whether it's the popular vote or it's the electoral college vote. And he's already predicting violence, right? I mean, he's already talking about pointing guns at, a former congresswoman. And, all of this information is going into the universe, and all of those would-be radical, racist, white skinheads are loading up now, right, to begin to go in the street and create anarchy. So Larry's correct, but that might be a bloodbath.
Right. And it's interesting that it is the new Congress that comes in, I believe, on January 3rd, right? So I'm not sure but that does mean that control of Congress becomes like immensely important, because I believe that if he is still Speaker of the House, there will be shenanigans, and I think that is one of those things can actually be used as a campaign issue of the reason why. Question is, does Tom Kaine Jr. have the character to resist Trump and to uphold democracy? And the answer would probably be a resounding no. Like
Yeah.
in the last minutes of this election, that probably is a campaign issue in terms of why he does not need to aid and abet in the control of the House.
So look, I agree with all that has been said. I think what our focus has to be is one of preparation, one of preparation for the aftermath of a victory, which I'm cautiously optimistic for Kamala. But as we typically prepare for everything, we always prepare for the aftermath. So you have your legal teams that are in place, and ready to respond to whatever shenanigans that occur. But the main thing is what we need to kind of keep our eye on the prize is and that is ensuring that over these next several days that we are turning out in record numbers, African Americans, Latinos, those from the AAPI community, those individuals that make up what we call the majority minority in New Jersey, which is becoming which is quite the case right now, and we'll be going forward. But these other states where we have individuals that are typically marginalized individuals. We have to recognize that the next 4 years will essentially determine the next several decades, and that impacts our children and our grandchildren.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I want to throw something else in the mix. I heard that all of the conversation, particularly that we had with Mayor Baraka 2 weeks ago, was all about, the black male vote, right? Now, what I heard this morning is that Mika was employing white women not to pull the okie doke. She said, don't do to Kamala what they did to Hillary by fooling her like they were going to go in and vote for her and then go in and vote with their white husbands, right? And do y'all think that white women are really going to come out and support Kamala this time around and don't do to her what they did to Hillary?
Well, look, that remains to be seen, right?
Sure.
But look, the number one issue is reproductive freedoms across the country, and a lot of them perhaps have their own personal challenges that are very private, and when if that is in jeopardy, and they have daughters that perhaps may, find themselves in a situation where they, they have to make a determination on how they, deal with their own bodies, and through the advice of a doctor, and not through some government male gendered person that really doesn't have a clue. Hopefully, that logic prevails in this. But we got to make sure that first and foremost we continue to send the clarion call to all those folks that would be impacted negatively, and that's the communities that all of us live in, and and some of us have represented for a long time, and some of us are always out on the field as activists, making sure that the rights that we have are continued to be upheld. So and this is an election that is wholly holistically uh, focused on freedoms, and and equality, and justice, and social justice, and civil rights. All those things are wrapped up into this election. So we can't, we shouldn't get caught up in the diversion of, well, some brothers, some black males aren't going to support Donald Trump. Um, all right, I'm not, I don't understand that. None of us on this Zoom do, but we can't get caught up in trying to convince a whole bunch of folks, that a small community of folks, that ain't the right thing to do. We need to concentrate on our folks, who will be impacted in a serious way, to make sure that they get out there and vote.
Yeah. Also, too, if I could just jump in here, there's the whole thing about the voting process that we need to really, in the future and now, educate the community that once we get the votes, we get the House. Once we get the votes, we can put the judges in. Once we get the votes, we can determine who's on what committees, what legislation comes out of what committees, all of that. And that's the rank and file average person on the street, not just in our community, but across the board, doesn't understand that process. But my concern is about our community, to be quite honest with you. I'm just, I'm going to go but South Ward now. My concern is about my people in my community. That's why I want to put them up on game, right? And being around this since I was a kid, I understand the game. And it's, a lot of people get frustrated. Why don't we have more choices? Why don't we do this? You got to understand the game. They were concentrating on, years ago, the last 20, maybe 30 years ago, you remember when the Republicans were concentrating on the judges, federal judges. Why? Because some of those judges to go to the Supreme Court, they get chose as they go up the ladder of federal judges. So that's what I'm talking about. Let's put our people up on game. you know, and I'm saying that in the street vernacular because the majority of our people, that's how we have to approach them. And I was on the call the other night with Barack, and I'm with that, and I understand, but his presentation a little bit can be a little professorial, and I'll probably pronounce it wrong, but since I'm not a Harvard scholar,
we understood you. We understood you, little brother. We understood you.
We got to break it down to people, you know?
Make it plain.
So that's all I'm saying. And also to some of our messages, we need to come out a little bit sooner, as opposed to coming out and saying things that we all knew, that Trump's economy that he inherited from Barack. So if you know anything about the process, you're turning that big ship called America around. When a Republican administration comes in, after they done messed up everything, it's going to take the Democrats a little bit of time to turn that big ship around. And that is it's like Donald Trump's economy is doing good. That's because he's benefiting from Barack. So the economy that he screwed up, that has a reflection onto Joe Biden because Joe's got to fix it, you know. And we need to, on the national level, stop being punk asses Democrats. Respond to stuff when they say these things. Right? If they talk,
Eric, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, hey man, you know who my father is, so I got to break it down to you, bro. Yeah, you know, and Dwayne knows. Dwayne Warren knows what time it is. I'm just saying, though, right? That's what our people in the street want to hear. That's what and that's how they need to be educated to the process. And once we understand that, you know, then we can compete. Then we can get out there and compete with them on equal footing. Like Mr. Ham said, we need to be out there in the street and letting them know, hey, if it has to be that way, sometimes it's got to be that way. And I'm sorry, man. I'm gonna stop talking now because you know the Renner Avenue is coming out of me. So,
Mayor Warren,
all right.
All right, Mayor Warren, welcome to All Politics So Local. I know that it's election season all over. We are, and I know that people are organizing around there. Do you have people going to Philadelphia or Pennsylvania? Do you have people going to the 7th Congressional District? What is there like to be right before Election Day there? What are you pushing people to do? Oh, you are on mute?
We're going everywhere and preaching in every nation, kindred, and tongue. This is really that important. You've heard the good brother break it down for you. And the chairman is right that we can't look at a small percentage and alter what we do here locally because there are serious affects on us locally as to what happens in the national party. You've heard about the judges, but things as minute as the school board, minute as housing funds, how we divvy up tax credits for affordable housing. Those small items are affected by who is on the national level. I'm paving streets right now. I'm paving them from infrastructure money that Biden thought was important to be in urban areas. So when we look at each and everything that happens at our doorstep at home, we have to understand how it is affected at the top of the ticket. That is where the resources are. That is where we can have some kind of parity in terms of our neighborhoods. So we have to look at this really in a granular fashion as we make decisions about who we're going to support. And a vote, I think a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for people who are in urban areas and who have urban concerns. And as a mayor, part of my job is to bring home the bacon. And every time there's an election, I assemble my team. I go to Chairman Leroy Jones. I say, here is what we need. Puts us in touch with the people who are at the top of the ticket so they can hear our concerns and start to meet out our resources. If I don't have that, if I can't go to my chairman to help me get it, if I can't go to my party to help me get it, and if I'm going to a person who really has a disdain for me and my constituency, it's going to be very tough on us in the urban areas. And that's how we have to really look at this. If you're not smart enough to vote for yourself, do it for those of us who are in urban areas who need the support. Do it for your daughters. Do it for your nieces. Do it for those of us who are looking to be able to take advantage of all of the jobs without having to check a box about our criminal history. We need to really look locally at our issues and understand how they are affected on the national level. So we're going to continue all the way up until the day of. We're going to have a watch party at our library on the night of the election on Sunday. We're going to have we're going to be painting signs out in front of our library so that we not going to focus so much on those people who are independent and don't know what choice to make. We're just going to be writing on our signs in an artistic way what the issues are, so you can focus on those. If you focus on what those issues are that are important to us here at home, then you're going to vote for Kamala Harris. So we're going to do everything that we can do all the way up until the last day, because it is that important for us here at home.
I want to say also on the matter of that infrastructure money, a lot of that infrastructure money also came to us by way of the late Congressman Donald Payne Jr. He was very, very big on that. That was at the heart of his work legacy when he was in Congress. Mayor Warren, what are you seeing of other mayors, other Black mayors, other urban mayors in terms of their GOTV capacity locally and around the country? I'm watching a race in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example. I have some good folks that I'm affiliated with in Tulsa. They're trying to elect a Black mayor for the first time out there. What are you seeing on the mayoral landscape in terms of getting stuff done?
Luckily for me, I run in circles with urban mayors, not only here locally, but across the country. And all of them are keenly focused on getting the vote out for this Democratic ticket, because all of them, urban sidewalks, you know, some problems, they say that it's not a Republican pothole or a Democratic pothole. There's some urban sidewalk problems and some urban pothole problems that are distinctly urban, that we get more of a shot from, that we get more trouble from our constituents. That we have more of our people using our streets. We're normally the place where corporate America makes its seat, where people have industry. So our streets are used more, our services are used more. So we understand collectively where the power lies, and it lies with urban mayors who can get people on the ground, who can get the word out. And, you know, it's up to us, as I do on a regular basis. We go into the neighborhoods door to door to talk to people about the issues that affect them. And sometimes we find ourselves explaining why a national ticket is important to our local, our block, our household. So it is that important that we get on the ground. And I'm seeing urban mayors do this across the country. They're being very creative about it, and we have to do that. They're speaking in multi-languages. They're speaking across multi-mediums. They're speaking with the arts, everything that we can do to get the word out and touch our people, we're doing. I just want to say, when we talk about the legacy of Donald Payne, we used to always joke that I was coming into office and my town was in the throes of completing an application for a tax credit. And here enters Donald Payne Jr. and puts his thumb on the application, says this is one we should consider. And from that day on in 2012, I've been building affordable housing, low-income housing, and market rate housing across Orange ever since, because he gave us that plug, put us in touch with people at HUD, told banks that we were a good investment to make, spoke to the folks at EDA, was just a true advocate for the things that we were doing in an urban area, and never let up. I spent a lot of time with him in Washington, D.C., giving him creative ways to get money out of his committees to send back home. Just a person who would listen and who is truly, truly an urban guy. We grew up together in the South Ward and learned politics from the same hands of leaders like his dad, Donald Payne, my uncle, Willie Brown, and others in the South Ward Democratic Organization. So he was raised well, but not only that, he remembered what he was taught and made us beneficiaries of it. So he's my good friend. I'll miss him.
So Eric, as we come to the last 5 minutes of the Payne report, why don't you talk a little bit, man, about your family, and really about because one of the things is that when the congressman was here, every month he would come on, and there was nothing more important to him than really this particular election, right? He stressed that, under no circumstances, and he would be doing everything he could, I'm sure, if he was here, to make sure that that Trump didn't get elected. What does it mean to your family, right? Just overall, in terms of just the history of the Payne family and this election and our people getting out and understanding what the cost is. You're muted, my brother.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it means I was saying that's a deep question. It's caused me to think I'm going to try to hear that without getting caught up. So, like Dwayne said, and as I sit around and I've known Leroy for a while, we were brought up in this. This is, unfortunately, like it or not, this is our destiny. We're born black. We're born into this world. So, understanding what that means and the responsibility. I'm glad that I was brought up in a community of activists, and I was brought up by parents who were part of a civil rights generation who understood the assignment and tried to carry the torch forward for us. Stuff was being poured into us that we didn't even realize, just by osmosis, being that environment. I can't even walk down the street, and if I see a broken lamppost or something, it's a reflex now. It's like, it's like this community reflex that I have that was instilled in me as a kid. So, going back to my original point of saying, when I was a child, I thought it was going to be all right when I got older. But then when I got older, I saw that my responsibility was my turn to contribute. I think James Baldwin talked about when he was overseas and wanted to get away from America. And at one point, he realized it was his time to come back home and put in his 2 cents. And me being home these last 11 years, watching my cousin work, watching the legacy that was built, and seeing all the people that I've seen since I was a kid, it inspired me. Seeing you stand up there, brother Leroy, do your thing and lead this party, it's inspiring to me. Seeing Dwayne, after all these years when we were inspired and influenced by his uncle, Mr. McClish, my father, my uncle, and all of those other people that were active back then, even some who have lost their way. Even some who has lost their way. There's a lot of negative things people to say about Sharp James, but I remember when he first got involved. I remember sitting in meetings and seeing Donald Tucker and my uncle. And I remember them trying to do something for the community, for the people. So that's why. And looking at my dad, I would trip on him. I was like, why is he always so intense? You serve with him. You guys all know my dad. Why is he so intense? And he said he knew Martin Luther King. He knew Medgar Evers. He tried to tell Medgar Evers, they're going to kill you. Why would you go back down there? And he said, Medgar Evers said to him, have you ever been to Mississippi? No, it's a beautiful place. Dead 2 weeks later. Dr. King was a friend of his, associate. And last time he saw him, he went to see him at the Abyssinia Baptist Church. And he couldn't stay. He waited outside. And Dr. King said, why don't you ride over to Harry Belafonte's with me? And there was a black policeman that was driving Dr. King. And he told my father, don't worry about your double parked car, Bill. I'll bring you back. And he said, no, I got to go home. I got the wife and kids. He remembers Dr. King waving out of the back window out of the last time he saw him.
That's right.
He said it's the least they can do. Their life is the least they can do. Our people the world over. So it's the least that we can do. But that's what it means to me. And I'm proud of the legacy that my family put in. And, even my mom contributing what she contributed, Kay Thompson, as a radio and having a dance school for black women to have an outlet. This is what we have to do. for Black people by any means necessary. All right. Thanks for letting me share that.
So Ed, Jonathan, Syed, I think
That's right.
that needs
Right
to
on.
be the last word.
Right on.
Mm.
Right on.
Well said, Eric.
Right
Much
Amen.
love, my brother.
on. Right on. We're gonna give Daddy a report too. That's right.
Thank you, Eric. We appreciate you, man, for hanging out with us for a couple of months. You know,
Yes.
you touched all of us.
That's right.
Thank you, brothers.
Being real. Being real.
You know,
Shoulders you stand on. Gotta honor that.
yes, sir.
And Congressman Payne was my friend.
No way.
Yeah, we all about to get a little emotional here, right?
Right.
But that's just a testament to a good brother, a good friend, you know, a silent warrior.
Yes, sir.
And I'm one that's just, you know, fortunate and thank God that I had an opportunity, you know, to be a friend of Don Payne Jr.
Yep. That was my brother. So
That's a good brother.
so let's get out vote. Because he would be here. Dialysis, he would be fighting. And he would be fitting it in between dialysis. You guys know he would be out there.
That's right.
Brothers, limping with the boot on. You know. So
Adema fell off, just to remind everybody, the streets matter. 12 o'clock tomorrow, Lincoln Monument in the streets. We ain't gonna just stay there. We're gonna take the streets. We're gonna march too. Right? All right. Yeah, that must be the truth. Billy United Front.
Yeah,
Okay, it's emotional, not talk. It's radio.
It is. Yes, I mean, it is. I'm. You know, I don't get a loss for words. Often,
that's right. It's a sea of love. I see y'all. I'm proud of you.
But this is really like.
I see you over there. I see you
going on.
Don't worry about
I have
that.
to say, it's just been an honor.
People need to see
be
you
a part of this, right? And straight up, right? Like, it's been having the conversations, learning so much, and just understanding, like, and appreciating so much more about the process. So, you know, an absolute honor to talk to you, have you on, be a part of this whole process. So absolutely. So thank you, Ed. You can end this segment, and we will, we'll revisit. We'll continue to broadcast in that spirit, right? In the spirit of that. So I want to thank all the guests on this segment right now, right? Like, because I think even the guests that we have is a testament to Congressman Payne and
Let's go win this thing for Chop.
Yes, sir.
Let's go win this thing for Chop. Let's go win this thing for Chop.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're gonna win. We're gonna win.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brothers, for making this segment. It's important that we remember.
And then remember what it's about, right? And while we remember, but while we get out there and do everything we possibly can to make the right thing happen on Tuesday, because you know we really can't go back.
No,
we can't go back.
Can't afford it.
All right, Ed.
Oh man, I would just say, long live Congressman Payne, brother. That's all I can say, man. It's my brother, and on this show, we ain't ever gonna forget him. I thank all of you, man. I love all you brothers, man.
Love y'all too. Thanks for the
love y'all.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
That's right.
So we are at and thank you, and again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
So this All Politics Are Local, America's number one streaming show, and thank everybody again. And we have Dr. Jones in the background, right? And so thank you for coming on. We will be on again talking about this good stuff, going forward. and may we do everything possible to make sure the right thing happens Tuesday.
Right thing happens. That's
The
right.
right thing happens.
Right thing, not the right wing. I'll
Need
be
that
clear.
Democratic.
Word.
Peace out, beloved.
All right, y'all keep your
All right,
heads
peace
up.
out.
Brother. John, I appreciate you, man.
All right, appreciate you back.
Gentlemen.
Appreciate you back. All right, and thank you. All right, so we are all quite a little bit emotional after the last segment.
Yeah.
We're trying to get fully in our feelings, right? Like
Very healthy.
we
Very healthy too.
right, and
Very healthy.
it is healthy, right? Because
Right.
we have all been grieving over the last few months. Sometimes heavily, sometimes at point, sometimes subtle. I think Ed, it just caught you by surprise right now, like you just got caught out there, because we have in our last segment the Payne report. We've been doing it for over 10 years, right? And after our good congressman passed away this spring, we made a decision to continue the report through the election. And with the election coming close, this is the last Payne report before the election. And we know how much this election meant to him. In 2020, he was traveling to different places in the midst of COVID, right? He was traveling different places, putting his own health at risk to make sure that the right thing happened then. And we know that he would have done everything to make sure that the right thing happens now. So we appreciate you being here. So, Dr. Joseph L. Jones, very good meeting you. Glad to have been introduced to by our good friend, Dr. Kelly Harris. Shout out to Dr. Kelly Harris. We appreciate you very much. You are about to publish a book, and you are about to publish a book on Black colleges and its history. And you are, just as an introduction, as an introduction to you, you are a professor. You are the executive director of the W.E.B. Du Bois Southern Center for the Studies of Public Policy, and a professor at Clark Atlanta University. And part of the first part of this conversation is discussing your new book. It's not out yet, but it will be out soon. It's called Black, Not Historically Black, Towards a Pan-Black College and University. And I believe that is going to be out in January, right? So it's an honor to have you on our show. Welcome to All Politics Are Local. And so how are you on this very tense, very nervous, like, are they really trying to do it again? Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, how you doing?
I'm good. I feel like I came into a whole lot of emotions with all the brothers, man. I could say that was a beautiful thing to see brothers vulnerable, and I felt like I knew Brother Payne just listening to you all just talk about the man and the reverence. And I have no idea who the brother was, but I know that when you make an impact on people's lives, like they speak your name. And so, but I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm not nervous. I'm not anxious about the election.
You're not nervous.
I'm not because, and here's my position. And I've been telling my students this for probably about a year and a half. I said, it's going to be bad either way. It's going to be bad either way. And let me make my case. So if Trump wins, right? Trump wins, and he's going to basically make America his authoritative playground, right?
Right.
If Kamala wins, the backlash, brothers, right? What happened immediately after Obama got elected in 2008? The Tea Party came about, right?
Right.
And we began to start to see this ratcheting up, through policy and protests, and even within the last few years, political violence, I think, stemming to, January 6th. But, one of my good professors who taught me Black politics at Clark Atlanta University, he used to say this, and I found it to be true. Every Black advancement has always been met by hostile white resistance. So if she does get into office, I mean, it's to me, it's an important symbolic thing, but we got to be prepared for, another fight, right? Because everybody's talking about Project 2025 and they laid out the plan. And my question is, what's the contingency plan they have? Right? If they don't win, right? And best believe they got a plan, right? And so it's so to me, it's going to be, I think for the rest of this decade, it's going to be contentious. For the rest of this decade, I think it's going to be more violence for the rest, regardless of how it goes either way. And so that's why I'm not nervous or anxious, because for those of us who know and study the history of Black folk in this country, that has been a consistent thing. We're always responding to a type of repression or racism or things. And so it's all about how we keep our attitude, how we keep, and what we can do for our own institutions in order for us to kind of move forward. And so I'm not nervous.
You segueing right into your book.
Sure.
Are you segueing? Is that a smooth? You're like, it's
Actually,
really about what we
jump
like.
in on
Either
something
way,
before you
Black people are going to be fighting. We're either going to be fighting against authoritarianism straight up, like with Trump, or we're going to be fighting against the authoritarian backlash with the people when he don't win, and he's going to try to go crazy, right? Because they're going to go crazy,
Right. Absolutely right.
So we're going to get more into that actually, right? Because when you're talking about, we're going to get a lot more into that, but I want to get into that through your book, because you said it's about the institutions, and your book is not out yet, but it is a very provocative title, right? And the title of your upcoming book, and correct me, but I believe it's coming out in January. It is the title.
So I'm working with the press, so it might come out this month, the last Tuesday of this month. So yes.
Oh, perfectly, right? And it's called Black, Not Historically Black, Towards the Pan-Black College and University.
Yes.
Now, what is this Black, not historic? Like, just break down the title for me. Like, what is this Black, Not Historically Black? What are you talking about?
So yes, it is provocative, and it's meant to be provocative and to be disruptive, right? And so the reason why I named it Black, Not Historically Black, is because I wanted to take people, and in my introduction, I take them through what I would call the three eras of Black colleges in this country, right? So you had the Negro college era from like 1837 to about 1920. And then I would argue there was the new Negro college era from 1920 to about 1964. And now we're in this HBCU era from 1965 up until now. One of the lost conversations that I think we don't really have as academics, as scholars, even as communities, is about what was lost and what was compromised when we decided to throw into our lot into desegregation and integration as a strategy, right? And one of the things that we don't actually think about is up until that time period, up until the Higher Education Act in 1964, Black colleges were just that. They were Black, and there was a lot of healthy discussion around what type of Black college and what the role should be, in during those time periods, right? We know the famous debate between Du Bois and Washington, and we know that, like, for all intents and purposes, the scholarly class, the elite, the Black middle class up until 1964, anybody who went on to get an education, 9 times out of 10 actually went to Black colleges. But with this designation through the Higher Education Act of 1965, which basically says that, you guys can't be Black anymore, but because we're going to say you're historically Black. You're a historically Black college or university, because you can't be Black moving forward, because guess what? You just fought a system to say that you didn't want segregated education. You follow?
Wow.
So that is how we get the designation of historically Black college and university. So it was a label given to us, to our institutions, right? And out of that, what happened? You saw Black folks, the best and the brightest, they all started to go to all the PWIs, and then we began to start to see this kind of decline that was happening internally, at what we now call HBCUs, right? we have, and instead of really having, I think, a real healthy conversation around, like I said, the purpose and the you know, and you know, how we should really use Black colleges to do things specifically for Black people, it usually the dichotomy is, you know, HBCU versus PWI. The internal conversation has just basically relented and said, okay, we're an HBCU, but what is that, right? Like, but what is that? You know, are we using that? And we use it at all the time as if that legacy or that intentness was inherited with this designation of HBCU. And from I can tell you, for somebody who's been at 5 Black colleges that have had got all my education, and I've taught, and I'm still working at Black colleges, that is not the case. And so this book is it is a critique of what I'm trying to get people to understand, that the ways in which the internal contradictions that exist in HBCUs needs to be addressed, and in a very open and very transparent kind of way. So hope I answered the first part of your question. That's why it's Black, not historically Black. And then the other.
Okay, that's just the Black, not historically Black, is simply the designation that happened after 1965,
Yes.
because they looked at it as if you were a Black college, then you'd be segregated.
Yes.
So historically Black was to play with that term so that you could continue to be a Black college without fitting segregation.
Right. And so the Black, not historically Black, and then the next turn towards the Pan-Black College and University is basically what I'm arguing, that what we call HBCUs should become PBCUs. And so in the book, I have 8 chapters, and I deal with very specific issues that I think exist or are very, very problematic in what we're calling HBCUs. So I talk about leadership, education, culture, legitimacy, sustainability, respect, social justice. And the last chapter is dealing with Pan-Africanism. And so, but if you don't mind, if I can just, if I can read this quote from Du Bois, because I read the entire book. I mean,
you're ahead of me with my questions. Go ahead.
In Du Bois' book, The Education of Black Folks, 10 Critiques, because there was a tradition that I think some of us have kind of gotten away from, and that is openly and honestly talking about the contradictions that exist in our institutions. And so this is a quote from a speech that Du Bois gave 20 years after his graduation. So the alumni asked him to come back, right? They asked him to come back and to speak to something that they saw. This was 1908. And so Fisk had decided that it wanted to enter into the agricultural, education, basically aligning with Booker T. Washington's worldview. And so they asked Du Bois to kind of come back to speak to that. And so here's the quote that comes out of this speech. And for me, this is like the framing of my whole entire book. He says this: 3 gifts a graduate may bring back to his alma mater: a gift of gold, and surely today this is needed, for more and more of the burden of the Negro is destined on the Negro's shoulder. And support of a college like this will eventually come from its alumni. Yet the gift of gold is not possible to all of us, nor is it the greatest gift. So the second gift an alum can bring back is a gift of accomplishment. All things done, succeed, knowledge advanced, and foster. He said, too little of this proof of our training have we brought back to Fisk, but a greater full return to Galileo did to Pisa. Yet this is not the greatest, and in making the greater gift, this man missed his mark and the greatest. And he says this: for the greatest gift that a scholar can bring to learning is the reverence of truth, the hatred of hypocrisy and sham, and the absolute certainty of purpose. And he says, after 20 years, if we the class of 88 return with little gold, but pitiful accomplishments, God grant we bring to this altar the incense at clean hands of unbending devotion to what we know to be true. So that is this is what I'm doing. Like, Du Bois was somebody who was very, very honest and open publicly about the internal contradictions that were going on in our institutions. And so he wrote speeches. He delivered speeches. He went to Fisk and had this speech, and like 1 year afterwards, the president ended up resigning. They got rid of the agricultural, initiative. So that's why there's not none of this right now. But
wait, so they got rid of the. You said they got rid of the agricultural initiative. Can you break that down to me? Just
so, like I said, with the speech, he came there because they were actually starting, I guess you say, education program that was dealing with agricultural or industrial education, for the lack of a better word. And if we understand that history, like I said, Booker T. Washington and Du Bois, they were fighting over what type of education Black folks should have. So his alma mater, Fisk, which was pretty much a non-agricultural school, decided that it wanted to actually go in that direction. And so they brought Du Bois back as a commencement speak to that, right? And after this speech, the president lost his job and the agricultural initiative went away. And
interesting, because
critique to our institutions is something that I'm trying to tap in this book.
And in that critique,
I just wanted to say that should be noted that what Du Bois was a Fisk graduate. He right after that he taught at Atlanta University.
Yes.
You standing on some heavy shoulders.
Yes.
You want to get that in. Go ahead, Jonathan. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Because and part of my because you're right, like that this history is so incredibly important. Part of what I was thinking about is if they're getting rid, like he was talking about, like that search for truth that becomes important, whereas I assumed that in agriculture it would just be scientific truth, but what you're talking about, it was like the debate between vocational education and academic education, and their agricultural department was mostly vocational as opposed to that search for truth, that inquiry, right? And that probably even becomes even more important when we look at things today in terms of what Fisk's mission is and what our mission is as educators in both high school and college and in general. So you were saying you're breaking this down. I'm sorry. I just wanted that clarification. I wanted to slow down so that to bring everybody with you, because you're breaking stuff down. But talk to us.
So that was the title. I mean, that was the gist behind the title. So I deal with that in my introduction. But then so let me just show you how the anatomy of each one of the chapters works, right? So I start each chapter off with a story, a real story, because just to kind of give you some background to myself, I've been a student at a Black college. I've been a professor. I've been an administrator. I've been a college president, and I'm a parent. There are very few brothers like me in the world, and I've worked at 5 Black colleges. All right, so I'm just laying out my credentials, okay? And my commitment to these institutions, right? So I'm uniquely, prepared to kind of speak to these things that I'm seeing, right? And so, like I said, the anatomy of the chapter is, first, it's a story. So I tell a true story about, my experiences in one of the colleges that I work for. So I provide a story. I provide a Du Bois quote, because like I said, Du Bois was critiquing Negro colleges for at least 30 or 40 years of his life. And it culminates in a book called The Education of Black Folks, 10 Critiques, right? So I use one of his quotes from one of those pieces just to remind people that my critiques are not new, right? That this is a tradition that we've kind of gotten away from. So I do that intentionally. So the story, so the quote, and then I go in and I define my terms, and then I provide a critique, and then I offer solutions, right? So the first chapter is leadership, not misleadership, right? And so I tell the story. You brothers might remember this. Remember in 2016 when Trump took office, you had all those Negro presidents that went to the White House, and there's this big photo.
You said Negro. You said Negro. Wow.
Well, I heard you.
And they went there, and see, I was there in DC at the time because the meeting was supposed to be at Congress, right? I wasn't there. 1, I wasn't invited. 2, I wouldn't have went if they invited me anyway, because I am a political scientist, and I know that 1, here's a guy that's just coming into office, he can't do much, and 2, Congress holds the money. I need to be over there having that conversation. So I start the chapter off by talking about the morning after, right? When all the presidential colleagues were at breakfast, and all of them there are scrambling because their board of trustees, their students, their alumni are calling them, cussing them out, like, why are you cooning up to the Trump? Why are y'all taking pictures with him? And so on and so forth. And I just kind of describe that moment. And then I leave, that story basically saying, I wonder what Benjamin Mays and Du Bois kind of think about this particular moment, right? And then I would go into the chapter, and I also grounded in scholarship too. So the book is, like I said, I only knew how to write this book this way. It's not a traditional book. It's scholarly, yes, but it's also polemical, right? But it's also autobiographical as well. It's also prescriptive, right?
So what would that critique have been? Like, what is the critique of them? Donald Trump says, I gave him money.
Yes, I'm talking about Black college presidents, and I talk about Black college board of trustees. And
Right.
so I began to start.
So what is the critique of them in that moment? Like, what did you say?
In that moment? Well, in the moment was having a picture with somebody like Donald Trump, who at that time, he just got into office, and it looks like you guys are just kissing his butt just to be able to curry some kind of favor. Now there's also a backstory to it that I don't say in the book, because Obama really wasn't as friendly for Black colleges as
He should have been.
he should have been.
Wow.
So a lot of Black college presidents were frustrated with him. And so that might have been a moment where they were just like, oh, we finally got somebody who wants to pay so much attention. But that to me is just completely just inappropriate. And it was like 50 of them in office. And it was just one of those surreal things just watching. But anyways.
Is there something that led them to like as part of your critique in that chapter? What becomes the criticism of them that chapter stems from?
So the story is just to talk about the issue. I don't actually talk about them specifically. I'm talking about a particular type of president, or basically what I would call the criteria of what misleadership looks like as a president and as a board member at Black colleges, right, or at HBCUs. And so I talk about, and so I go on a rant, right? I said, most Black college presidents, they're arrogant. Most Black college presidents have no interest in social justice issues. Most Black college presidents are chosen because they're conservative, they're autocratic, and they're micromanagers. Most Black college presidents, sexual predators. Most college.
Whoa. Okay.
I go there. And so these are the internal contradictions we don't want to deal with. Because for those of us who work at Black colleges, we see these contradictions over and over and over again, right? And we don't want to deal with them. We don't want to talk about it. There's this whole thing, keep it in the closet. We don't want to talk. But what happens is that it benefits those Negro college presidents who end up doing more harm to our institutions than more good.
Spike Lee's movie hit like that when it came out.
Yeah, and so so what I'm trying to do is have a conversation about these contradictions that exist, right? And let me be very, very clear, because as I'm writing this, I'm not writing this as a pompous, well, I'm almighty. No, and in my chapter, I said I'm guilty of the same things that I'm writing about, the same critiques. Because there's no way in the world you can be in an organizational culture and not participate in some type of internal contradictions. But this book is a call to action. It is a call to the moment to say we've got to do better, and I'm going to tell you why we have to do better. And this is my thrust behind this whole entire book, because I'm looking to the future. Right? I'm thinking about 15, 20 years from now, right? When the browning of America occurs, right? And there's going to be even more competition between our brown-skinned brothers and sisters. White folks are going to be in the minority. We're going to need strong Black institutions in that moment, absent these very, very complicated contradictions, to be able to do what we can for our people in that moment, which means we got to stop all the shenanigans in this decade and get ourselves together so we don't have to deal with that 15, 20 years ago. So when it's time for us to really, really thrive in this country, we will have a space and an incubator to push it forward. And I can tell you right now, the vast majority of Black colleges are not ready for that moment.
Let me ask you this. And leaning on the 3 periods that you broke down, right? I belong to the generation where I was raised by what they proudly called themselves as race men and race women, right?
Yes.
That second period, right?
Yes.
What will it take to at least get our schools and our school leadership back to at least that kind of agency in their values?
Right, right. And so that's what I talk about. I mean, I lay out some very, very specific recommendations that our institutions can do in order to, one, invite or to hire a type of leader who would have the ethics and the values that can actually push our institutions forward, right? There needs to be a stronger vetting system through the selection of presidents, right? Right now, the way it's set up, an institution will hire a search firm. That search firm will go out and find candidates and bring it back to the institution. Sounds simple, right? But here's the problem. In that search firm, you got former college presidents. Not only just former college presidents, but former college presidents who did a horrible job in their institutions, who are picking the next leader for the new institutions, right? It's mired with contradictions. And then a lot of our institutions are not clear because many of them don't really have a strong brand or a strong identity. So a lot of leaders can come in and just remake the school, right? In their own image and then leave. And then what happens? Somebody else comes in and remakes the image in their school. We only have a handful of institutions with strong brands where if you put somebody in there, they can't change the school. They got to actually advance the school. I'm talking about the Morehouses, talking about the Spelmans, the Hamptons, and Howard University. And if they get somebody in, they're going to eject them fast because it's like, this is how we do this at Howard. There are 105 Black colleges. And oftentimes when we talk about them, we're only talking about a fourth. My book still gets to the other 2/3 that are out there trying to make sense out of this. And I'm telling you, there are some serious contradictions that exist.
Now, and I am curious. You did mention you mentioned sexual predators. What is the role of gender in these conversations, these contradictions? It seems like, given the high rates of education that Black women have disproportionately to Black men, it seems like in the higher leadership of these institutions, if they are like hiring who's out there, they would be disproportionately female-led run. Based on what you're saying, that does not seem to be the case. What's going on with that? Like, is that a part of your book as well? It seems like it is.
In regards to the recruitment of
and especially as it comes to gender, and when you talked about sexual harassment and culture, it seems like there's a culture
and leadership
that feeds itself into leadership, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And there's a prototype, right? There's a prototype of the type of leader, and it's funny because if you really think about it, this prototype has been talked about, through the decades. If you read Ralph Ellison's book, Invisible Man, he talks about Black college president and how he's just basically somebody who's I have power and white folks can't tell me what to do. Like there's this archetype, right? And you're right. So it's been kind of
you never know if he's taking the blindfolds off of your eyes or putting them on. Right? Exactly. I remember that part of the book. I was like, ooh.
Yes. And so, but you're right. So, but in my chapter, Social Justice, Not Diversity, I talk about injustice and how it perpetuates in our own institutions. And these are things we don't want to talk about, right? It's easy for us to talk about those, in external, injustices. But when your own people hurt you, that's a different kind of hurt, right? And sadly enough, Black women are the ones who are caught in the crossfire at our Black colleges. They're the ones that are treated like mules. They're the ones that are expected, that are paid the lowest, right? They're the ones, if they do happen to ascend the presidency, like down there in Alabama State University, they're told you can't have no conjugal visits because you're the president. It's in her contract. Yes.
What?
Whoa,
time.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
That exists now.
That happened as in years ago.
You can't conjugal. She's not a prisoner. Like what conjugal? They have in a contract. Like what? You can't. You can't have no menfolk visit. What the? Are you serious?
Because she wasn't married. So these contradictions and these are the kind of things that we have to deal with. And I give a couple of cases in my chapter on social justice, not diversity, about that. And I also talk about the role, the ways in which, or the role of, just gender or sexuality itself is not really dealt with, specifically with, the private religious-based, Black colleges. And let me also make a caveat, because my experience, the vast majority of my experiences has been at private institutions. So I'm very clear on the front end and saying I'm talking about private HBCUs, because there's a distinction, right? They're not the same. A&T is not the same as a Talladega. But when we talk about HBCUs, we kind of throw them all in this lump, and they're not. They're very, very diverse. And I also talk about the diversity. There are some that are AME. There are some that are United Methodist. There are some that are Presbyterian. There are state schools. There are 2-year schools. But what has happened is that we talk about them in this kind of lump sum. But I'm very, very clear about talking about the private HBCUs because you have more control over how you define your institution and how Black you want to be, because state institutions, you're not going to have that. You don't have that because you're basically legislated by, the state. And you've already seceded and said that you don't want separate institutions. So you're not going to overtly say, we are Black and we're going to be focusing on Black studies. We're going to do all these things, because specifically in this climate, because you have, all the anti-DEI and book banning and all that stuff that a lot of state institutions are dealing with. FAM is dealing with this stuff right now, these contradictions, right? When you have a Republican House and governor who are pushing for these things, we forget that these are state schools. And Alabama is the exact same thing. And I have colleagues there who are afraid to even, put things in their syllabus.
Wow.
Because, they might get audited, right? And these are at historically Black colleges, and so I'm not talking about them because they don't have, the kind of sovereignty or discretion to be able to deal with that. But at private Black colleges, we have all of the, I guess you could say the power to do those kind of things, right? The reason why, for me being over the policy center and the things that we do, we can be very explicit in saying we are only studying Black people in the American South and the global South. That's it. We're not even using the word minority. We are going to be selfish and we're just looking at Black people. So all of our research is going to stem from that, right? Couldn't do that at a Georgia State. Couldn't do that at the University of Georgia, right? And because, as the brother said before, Atlanta University, that history, we've always been on the forefront of standing up with the Atlanta University studies that Du Bois was doing at the turn of the 20th century, doing Black studies before Black studies was even called Black studies, right? And so that's part of our intellectual DNA. And so we own up to it and we operate from that perspective, right? The kind of the Du Boisian kind of tradition, always grounding ourselves in the experiences of African Americans, and then looking to Africa, then looking to the rest of the world to guide our consciousness. And so this book is also an extension of that Du Boisian tradition, but another type of tradition, a very, very critical tradition, an internal critical tradition, dare I say the other prophetic tradition, if we're clear about the African-American prophetic tradition, which speaks out to external racism. Well, I'm doing the other prophetic tradition, which is to deal with our own internal contradictions so that we can get better.
We are going to I know that we're running close on time, and I really want to go through the book. We're going to have to invite you back, but we have Chris Randall, one of our frequent co-hosts who jumped on, and I know he has a question for you to ask you for this, because I mean he is steeped in so much literature, and I know he absolutely loves what you were talking about. So, Mr. Randall, I don't know what the question is, but ask away.
I have this book in front of me. It is literally W.E.B. Du Bois data sets.
Yes.
That he used to construct the ideas that became the souls of Black folks.
Yes.
One of the things that I thought was the most powerful was the thing you just said. I've been, paying attention in transit. But the way that you talk about the way you do governance research, meaning who are Black people to each other, and how you begin with that instead of the external who are Black people to other people, which is the social structure, I think is the best part for me. The question I think is burning inside me is how, given the way most people imagine Black research to be only important insofar as we allow it to be relevant to people who aren't Black, how does that affect not only the way Black institutions, i.e. HBCUs, function, but then how does that affect the intercultural conversations that we have with each other when we end up infusing what everybody else thinks about what it means to be Black and not us?
Yeah, beautiful question, brother. Beautiful question, and I get to that in a couple of these chapters, and I invoke Toni Morrison when she talks about the white gaze, right? Yes, and how so many Black colleges are enamored with the white gaze, right? And in regards to their identity, like it's always funny when I go to a Black college, and if you look at their magazines or their recruitment stuff, they'll have a white person on there.
Mm-hmm. And most of them are named after white people.
Yeah, they are.
People don't even know that.
But the literature would have, just like you know how you look at like University of Michigan, or they always have that token Black person on the cover.
The quarterback of the football team. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm saying Black colleges emulate that exact same thing in their recruitment things, because they think that okay, this is what we need to do, right? So to your point around, creating an environment where you don't have to, or where you're not considering the white gaze, right? When you're not considering what are white folk going to think about me if I put out a recruitment magazine that has all Black people on the cover. I might not look to support diversity. So I might want to put the one white person that I have in my school on the cover just to make it seem like I'm
right.
Yeah. And but that kind of goes back to, and this is why the first chapter I talk about it is leadership. It's the kind of leader that comes in there and their expectation of what their mission, what their values are for that institution. And I can tell you, brothers, straight up that for me, and I've rubbed elbows with these folk. I know them, some of them fairly well, and many of them are nowhere near a level of kind of Black consciousness. They're either a careerist or just trying to get to that white school, or they're or it's there for the money or for the fame, but not for the the intent or the purpose of mission and vision building to build out and to actually impact Black communities. I don't see that. And so the other part of this book, for me, the motivation behind it is for those who do want to become Black college presidents or workers there. I want them to read this and wrestle with this so that they don't make the same mistakes and do the exact same things that I'm seeing that's going on. So ultimately, I'm trying to have a really, really critical discourse about what's happening at our institutions.
We are definitely going to have you back, because like what you're talking about, especially given where you are in Clark, Atlanta, I just want to know when this book comes out, what types of dialogue are happening there and elsewhere, what conversations you're going to be a part of, what kind of conversations you're going to be excluded from, right? They're not.
That's not going to be the correct answer, Mr. Alston. Let me tell you. Let me just don't. I know this is sad. I know here I go, Chris Randall again. There's not going to be any conversation about it. None. Zero. Let me tell you why. Because it's on purpose. There's not a single institution in America that ends up being anti-Black. There's not a person in America who ends up being anti-Black that's not doing it on purpose at this historical moment. What would be, I ain't gonna say his name because we all know who it is, but what would it profit a Black religious studies scholar to critique Francis Cress Welsing in public? Why would you do that? What would it critique one of the highest level Black economic scholars in history to then write a book about Malcolm X and intentionally get the history wrong when you've been one of the most pristine historians in history? What would you do that for if you didn't do it on purpose?
On purpose.
And I understand it, but in terms of going out of this particular segment, I want to let you have the last word. But when you're having the last word, Dr. Jones, we always ask the question: who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group? This is the first time you're on our show. Let us know who that is, but also tell us more about your book. What are you going to leave us with as we finish up this segment?
If you'd asked me last year, I would have definitely said Tupac Shakur. but I think I have now settled on Kendrick Lamar.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the
both.
Lord.
Yes,
We do both.
and I've been an avid Pac lover forever. But what Kendrick's been doing in his music and how he's just been elevating, I mean, it's a marvel. It is just, yeah, it is every.
That was the other title of your book, Dr. Jones. They not like us.
well, Dr. Jones, thank you a lot. But tell us, what is it about your book that you most want to leave us with? What do you want to leave us with?
Like I said, I'm intentionally trying to be disruptive because I want our institutions to change, to be functional, to be able to be the institutions that our ancestors wanted us to thrive to be, right? And I just don't think that we're there right now. So yes, it's intentionally to be provocative, but I'm ready to square up in the arena with anybody and go word for word on anything that I've written. And I know that there are several people out, I mean, hundreds of people out there who can testify to a lot of the stuff that is going on in our institutions. And this is done in a labor of love because we got to get it right. We have got to get it right. So that's why I'll leave you all with. And the book should be coming out on November the 26th.
Well, thank you so much. Again, honored to have you on. We got to have you back. We look forward to having you back. We know you're committed to coming back. I'm going to be just publicly thanking Dr. Kelly Harris for introducing us. And thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Peace, brothers.
All right. That was another great segment on All Politics Are Local, America's number one politically hip hop radio talk show. And we are into our next segment. And this is a great segment we have on right now. And on this segment, we have, because, we are talking about, I'm nervous. There's an election. This is going to be, I'm a little, tight, a little scared. Every time somebody's texting me on my phone, I'm giving money away.
Just
I'm giving
get ready to
$20
fight.
when Michelle is talking to me, I'm giving $20 to Michelle. When Barack is like, yo, we need money, I'm like, all right. I see. I just can't do it. Like, are we really about to do this again? We're really about to do this again. This is, I don't know. This seems like a place I haven't been. So I brought three people together who I deeply respect, whose opinions, whose life experiences in politics and activism in media are just impressive to me. I'm doing just a brief introduction to our three guests, and everyone knows who Baba Zaid is, our co-host, activist, awesome, and our guest for this segment. Choose Hope or Hate. What are we going to do? Is we are honored to have Lisa Durden, an award-winning filmmaker and television producer. She is a personal hero of mine. Absolutely, right? Because when you punch Tucker Carlson in the mouth rhetorically, that was just wonderful to see, and was so powerful. Dude just got all in his feelings, had a grudge, tried to get revenge, but we see the petty racist that he is and has grown to be even more blunt, right? So thank you, honored, Lisa, honored to have you on again. We have also on Maxim Thorne, good friend who I've known since I was like 19, 18 years old in college, and he is right now. Maxim Thorne is the chief executive officer of Civic Influencers. It is an organization that is very important in this particular election because it's getting out the youth vote. We know that if she don't get a lot more of that youth vote, she may not win. And we also have on here Brittney Claybrooks, a former East Orange Councilwoman and a former North Jersey political director for the United States Senate, candidacy of Andy Kim. Thank you for coming on again. This is really like the fourth or fifth time you've been on our program over the years, and glad to have you on as a commentator. Normally when you come on, you're running for a political office. Glad to have you. We're also, I believe, You worked with Nancy Pelosi's office and in Congress at some point, right? Like, so we have a wealth of experience here. Lisa Durden, you can see her on ABC, either on Here or Now, or you can see her on 2020 producing various segments. You can see Maxim Thorne. He's more like I consider Mr. Thorne more like a insider. You see him with Obama hanging out. You see him other places hanging out, right? Like, so it's really an honor to have all of you on the program right now. So I'm nervous. What's going on? Are we going to do this again? Like, really, are we going to do this again? Are we going to let the clown? The choice is like real clear. We have somebody who's like sane. We have somebody who is like talking in ways that I can actually understand. And we have somebody who holds their hate rally at Madison Square Garden and dances like a clown. And are we really doing this? Talk to me. Help me.
Well, I feel like
help him. He's nervous.
Do you hear me?
Oh, we hear you.
Yeah. So I feel like the fact that we are having this conversation is very troubling. And I'm going to say this. I don't have any issues with Black people, right? Because Black people have been putting Democrats in particular in office for decades, right? We are the lion's share of the electorate for those individuals. My disappointment is with those people who don't think they're Black. Latinos, Asians, we say of color, brown people. I'm disgusted by those of the brown people who have been electing Donald Trump for years. They elected him in 2016. They tried to elect him in 2020, but they lost. But he still got millions of their vote. He didn't get millions of our vote. So my question becomes to them, and I didn't need to see him at, now some of y'all are mad because he called y'all trash. But you needed to see him call you trash. Oh, you didn't care when he called the Haitians, the shithole countries. You didn't care when he said he grabs women by the pussy. You didn't care when he allowed people to go and do this insurrection and kill people and do all those other things. You didn't care when he got found guilty of a 34-count felony. You didn't care when he was accused and found liable of raping a woman in a store. So a handful of you only care because now he said y'all are on a boat and you're trash. Well, you didn't care when he threw towels at you after Hurricane Maria. So we need our cousins. We can't talk to us. We did our jobs. All you cousins out there, you brown folks, y'all are cousins because we made y'all. We came from Africa. Y'all came from us. We need you to be lockstep in this whole thing, because if you think they're not coming for you, think again. People love it when they're whitish and they think, well, they don't mean us, they mean the niggers. So now you see, how many times did you need to say it? So this is what's scary to me, that they are all voting for him. I'm not even looking for the white bros and the white hoes not to vote for him. They're white. He's white too. Why y'all voting for this man? And it's not just white. I like white people too. But that's the wrong kind of white man. Donald Trump.
You said the wrong kind of white man. All right. So there's some
good white folks out there, but this is not the kind of white man we want to see in that office. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough. Help me, Miss Claybrooks or Mr. Thorne.
I agree. I don't have anything else to add. I don't think this is ours to own.
Yeah.
It's really not ours to own. I have a whole lot to say about respectability politics in our community, and those of us who feel like we're not a monolith and all that, but that's not for mixed company in the public, because as a whole, as our sister said, we've been doing our jobs. I think, I hate to say this as a millennial, but for me, we've seen this before. Like,
exactly.
I'm a woman of faith, and I really just believe that, like, our people have always had to figure it out, no matter who's in office. And so while I am gravely, while I'm praying and praying and praying that we make it there, I really think that the work is going to be after the election, to me, either way, low key, because, you know, the truth of the matter is that no matter who's in office, we still have to figure out this racial wealth gap. And we know that one candidate, you know, our good sister Kamala or our vice president, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris is just better for that. And I think what's upsetting to me is that, you know, we're asking her to be some super savior that we never ask anybody else to be, when she has all of the qualifications, probably has been the most qualified, honestly. And so I think for me, again, we've seen it before. I think hopefully, you know, the best parts of this country prevail. We usually also see a lot of hope and optimism during these times too. We saw it in 2020. I think we're going to see it again. And I honestly am just hopeful. I know I don't have a whole lot of dynamic things to say, but to me, I'm just gearing up for what's next. I want to figure out, once the person gets in the office, what are we going to do about the down ballot, right? Once those people get in the office, what are we going to do to pass real legislation around the caretakers bill, where people are working unpaid hours across this country trying to take care of their family? What are we going to do about Social Security? What are we going to do about, like, real stuff? And I think I'm more disappointed about the fact that we haven't really been seeing that be talked about as much in the race. We aren't mentioning the word poverty for real. Like, that's a real thing, right? Folks are closer to being in the welfare. I don't care where you live. You know, during COVID and even now, we're seeing people really have to make ends meet that thought their six figures were six figuring. That's not a thing anymore. So I really want to see that kind of stuff, us buckle down and prepare for that. Because to be honest with you, Black folks, especially my kind of Black people from where I come from, where the average person was making in our census tract probably $37,000 a year reported income. You know, you have a household like mine where both parents have been to prison, right? Like, that's the kind of carrying on that I want to see happen, you know, post this election. Because we know if we are already in hard times, those of us that we're talking about trying to grab out to the polls and pull Beyonce out the woodworks and this person out the woodworks to campaign to, those are the folks that we really need to worry about passing policy for after the fact anyway. And so that's kind of what I care to talk about, to be honest with you.
Okay. And at first I thought you were talking about, like, when you said after the election, I thought you might have been talking about after the election because, you know, even if she wins, there's going to be so much stuff that goes on
Even
to
if
try
she
to
wins, right?
determine,
Even
right?
if Miss Madam wins, right? I'm doing everything I can. I didn't probably wrote postcards till I'm blue in the face. I've done everything I possibly can do, and it's in the Lord's hands now. I think my concern is, number one, we ought not underestimate, as was mentioned before, how much charged up they are as we are, right? And we also ought not underestimate how discouraged people are by this government in general, because we have been delivering a lot. We ought not underestimate how, you know, and that's what I think. People, oh, Kamala's going to win. I feel so much energy. No, we should not underestimate that. I think we are going to need everyone, but even after the fact, I think I'm worried about, what is this going to look like if he wins, right? Which I'm praying against. What then are the advocacy groups going to do? What is Congress going to do? How are we going to continue to keep things rolling? And if she does win, then what does accountability look like when you have when you have Republicans after her, when you have them preparing for other stuff, or when the states decide they want to fight back by changing state laws that, you know, ruin people's lives, which we know the South is infamous for doing. So, you know, it's a thing, and that's kind of where my head is.
And that was actually said by part of one of our past guests, talked about that even if she wins, there'll be incredible backlash that will have to be dealt with the next day. Now, Maxim, to adding to this, right? Like and what you're talking about, I'm also like, I know that what you do is try to get people out to win, and I'll have you talk about that. Like, what are you thinking? What is your head at? Are you freaking out and writing checks? Like,
No, I'm very excited and I'm very optimistic. So my personal story is I'm an immigrant here from Guyana. My parents are Guyanese and Barbadian. So I feel an affinity to Rihanna and to Kamala Harris and to all parts of the Black diaspora. What Lisa said, I understand and I empathize. But I am also very data driven. And so here's what I do know. And this is what we know in history. Black people, Black men and Black women have always been on the right side of history. And certainly when we got the right to vote, we've always been on the right side of history. That is not true for other groups.
Exactly.
And so we're here today, and I want to correct the record, but also notice a challenge that Black men, like Black women, have almost, in fact, have always, as a majority, voted for the progressive candidate.
Yep.
White men and white women nationally have almost never, as a majority, voted for the progressive candidate. So we should start our conversation by acknowledging and thanking Black men and Black women from the time we got the right to vote for voting for the progressive candidate. And I remind people that Frederick Douglass was the man at Seneca Falls when they were talking about women's rights. However, having said everything I just said, we have a challenge of how we keep Black men and other groups on the progressive side of the equation. Because there is a whatever demagoguery, there's a sexiness, there's an appeal to the machismo, perhaps, that Donald Trump is portraying. But here's what data shows that should encourage us. And then I'll talk a little bit about the election, Jonathan, because it affects the election. On the issues that young people care about, so I work exclusively with 18 to 28-year-olds. And the issues that Black men and women talk about are issues of income, gun violence, climate change. They talk about abortion access. They talk about student debt. They talk about poverty. They talk about child support, and so forth. And that continues. What has happened recently, which should give us pause, is that even though they rank that on the high end of the spectrum, there's been a shift in this election cycle of 15 to 20% of Black men and other men who are saying they are leaning towards the Republican Party and Donald Trump.
Now,
But that's
do the numbers go below? Do the numbers make the numbers go below 80%? Like, in
No.
other words, usually that's because part of it is like, if you get above 60%, it's a landslide in any election, right? Like,
No,
when you're talking about,
oh, Jonathan, hold on. Because the margins are so tight. If you lose 10% in some cases, you will lose the race. If you lose 20%, it wouldn't matter in New York or California. But if you're talking about Georgia or Arizona or Nevada or North Carolina or Wisconsin, it makes a difference. And so I think it's important to be local in our conversation about where it matters. And so in Georgia, if we lose 15 to 20% of the Black male vote, that will be seriously threatening to or positive to who wins Georgia, right? If one is a Republican or one is a Democrat. However, the point I'm trying to make here is Black men are where Black women are, but there's a dissonance. Why, if you favor someone to do something about climate change and gun violence and mass incarceration, would you vote for Donald Trump? And I think it's performance, male machismo performance, and something we have to work with. What I will say, though,
the question I have on that, just in that, if the numbers right now, right, are like even with the lower numbers, if the numbers are around 80% voting for Harris, we're talking about that sliver, right? So it's not really addressing Black men, it's addressing like that 10% of Black men who are not already overwhelmingly voting in a particular way, wouldn't they, like, if they are needed that much, shouldn't we do like active targeting because there's also an educational disadvantage too. Like a lot of the Black men or the women who are in that category, my fiance and I were talking about the other day, Black men who fall in that category talk about themselves as individuals, and they're like this, but it is like there's a disenfranchisement. They don't feel like, because again, we're talking about a sliver, right? The Black women who end up voting for Trump usually are religious conservatives, and they're doing it on the issue of abortion. So like, and that's just anecdotal, right? Like in terms of the slivers that we've talked to that fall into that category. If you're dealing with people who are disenfranchised, shouldn't the message, like if they are that important, shouldn't the message address the reason why they are so disenfranchised? They're going against like the majority of Black men. Like, shouldn't it be a micro-tailored message to those particular men who like feel that kind of way to go for Trump? And shouldn't we try to find out or shouldn't we have tried? Because I think it's probably too late now.
I was about to say
to find out what that was.
I was going to say we shouldn't be trying anything right now to get those men. No, let's not waste our time. Election day is less than 7 days away. No, we should not be trying to get Black men or any other people. Don't just say the 10% Black men, those 40% Latinos and the 60% Asian or whoever else. Let's not try to get these dogmatic MAGA monsters. It's not going to work. There's a large percentage of people in the center somewhere, and there's another percentage of people who are still on the bubble a week from there. So continue to march toward those. You already have the ones who are lockstep and who's going to vote for you. And then you can still continue to push your messaging, do these kind of shows, get the algorithm popping to make sure you're like, oh, okay, but you cannot get anybody who's hell-bent on voting for Donald Trump. You saw what he did in 2016. Saw him grab women by the pussy. You saw him get convicted of crimes, and he's still saying, "Oh, law and order," and you commit crimes. You can't change their mind. I'm going to say this really quick and let you jump in. As a salesperson in my other life, when I worked for Kellogg's Sales Company, when I worked for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, when I worked for Bristol Myers Squibb Pharmaceuticals, the training was the 80-20 rule. Every sales company teaches their sales reps the 80-20 rule. 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your market. So you're not going to get them all. Stop it. They don't. It's called a doubt versus an objection. If a person doubts something, you have a shot. When I say object, respect my no. I object. That's all.
Right.
Lisa wants to win, and she's right, because we have 7 days left to the election.
Less than that now.
But you are still right in a way that we have to have a long-term plan. But that is not a conversation for today. Yes. Which is where Lisa is, and I agree. But Lisa, I do have to say something.
Yes.
Again, I think you are talking about the entire cohort of people when you say the Hispanic diaspora, the Asian diaspora. That's for all ages. But I will say to you, talking about young people, 91% of Black people in that age range, 18 years to 28 years, voted for Biden.
Great.
87% of Hispanics voted for Biden.
Great.
And 83% of Asians voted for Biden. So we are seeing a real wonderful movement of young people, right, of Gen Z, who have moved far away from the sort of racist proximity to whiteness hankering that older folks seem to still suffer from. But I do want to make a distinction that for the people that I focus on, what you're saying, Lisa, I can show you great improvement.
Great. Let's keep marching toward those folks. Let's not march toward the MAGA monsters.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have time for them.
Right. Right. And I agree about the undecided, those people who are sort of in the cloud of I don't know yet. You know, like I don't really know. That's what we do in any election. You have your people who are definitely for you. You have your people who get out my face, don't come back to my doorstep. I know who I'm voting for. And then you have those folks who are like, well, how do they feel about gun laws? Oh, okay, whatever. And then you start talking to them about the real issues. And so if you stay there, with the undecideds, I think we're going to be all right. Because to be honest with you, that a lot of people want to know, a lot of people are confused and disenfranchised with governmental rhetoric. Like that has been a real thing since COVID. Like people are just like, okay, since over the last couple of years, like my life has not been the same. So now what does that mean for me? And those undecided
That
folks, if you
rhetoric's
really
been here
talk to them,
before COVID, Brittney. That rhetoric's been here. I'm 60. It's been here long
I mean,
before COVID.
but what I'm
That
saying is,
rhetoric's been here from the
for
beginning
me,
of time.
listen, I ain't been here that
It's
long,
never
right?
stopped.
I ain't been here that long. I don't claim to be, you know, a know-it-all or anything.
Long
I'm
before
only
COVID.
33.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm only 33, but I've seen a little bit, you know, having just coming out of a congressional race. And what I'm saying is that, like, we really need to get down and like talk to some of those people, like you said, that are in that cloud of doubt. Because other than that, folks who are voting for Trump are voting for Trump. People who are voting for Kamala are voting for Kamala. That's it. That's it. And
And
I
so
think
really
for
now
me,
it's just
Well, there's another category.
it's a
no, but Brittany,
Another category of
you're
the
finishing.
well.
But
So
let Brittany finish for a second. If you're just finishing a thought, and then we'll run right to you next.
I think the thing for me is, you know, doing what we can, like in these last couple of days, and then having a real conversation about, and maybe again, maybe I'm off, and I want to admit that, right? Because I'm still recovering from, you know, an illness, and I might have brain fog, but I really want us to start having a conversation about how to rebuild this thing. Because to be honest with you, that accountability piece afterwards, particularly for young people, like for my generation right now, we're like, look, we get it, but the political game's got to go. Like we're not doing the respectability stuff. We're not doing the you know, we're not fooled. Like we're not doing it. I came to this show with a baseball cap on. This is how we show up. This is just us, and we don't play that anymore. You can't run us something real quick, and that's why it's important to have us at the table too. And it's important for us to start turning some of the tide over in leadership and all of this stuff. If you want us there, we have to also be represented as well. So, I mean, I think, and I also will be honest with you, and that I agree that young people really are trending more towards where we should be, to be honest with you. I'm optimistic about either you have those of us that aren't going to show up anyway, or you have those of us that are going to show up and we're going to be on the progressive side. So, I mean, it is what it is. We have a couple days left, and I just think we ought to be beating the pavement at those undecided, cloudy sort of people.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Max, you were saying you were getting ready to jump in.
So I agree with Brittany. There is, in these 7 days, there is another very often ignored group of young people and other people, but I'm just talking about young people, which I would say is the low information voter. This is not the undecided. This is someone who the first time, don't jump on me, Lisa. The first time they even knew that there was the elections because Bad Bunny said something.
Oh Lord!
And there are a lot of people. We have to recognize there are a lot of people that don't ever look at MSNBC or listen, answer their music, and there are other things that they engage with. And getting a celebrity to engage is a way to reach them. And so to build on Brittany's point, it's to really win and have a change. We have to have a concerted effort in these days for the folks who know nothing. And what I have found in my focus groups, in meeting with young people, and I say young Asians, young Hispanic diaspora, Latinx diaspora, Black diaspora, African American diaspora, etc., is information. Did you know that Kamala Harris is going to give a $6,000 child tax credit for any baby that you have? Do you know she's restoring the $1,400 from COVID? Do you know that the largest, what's it, $100 and something billion appropriated for HBCUs and for tribal colleges? And I could go on and on. And the answer for almost every one of them is no, I didn't know, no, I don't know. But here's what they remember. Donald Trump signed a check and gave me money. Low information.
Congress signed the check and gave them money.
No. Congress didn't give you money. Donald Trump didn't give you money. You gave you money. Because all that money is our money.
But I am not fighting them.
Your banker doesn't give you money. That when you want a bank check, The banker drafts a check from your money from your account.
I
So
agree
the
with Lisa.
money is yours.
I
And then
agree. But I'm building on your point.
then
Now is
Congress
not the
decided
time
for
to
once,
argue.
and then Congress decided. No, I know,
Right.
but Congress decided for once they were going to spend it on what they were supposed to spend it
Congress,
on, and
I'm
then you
tired of
got
people
the
saying,
check.
Congress, don't give them that
but
credit.
when-
I'm sick of
but
it. It's our money. That's all.
Correct.
But
No, you're right. You're correct.
Absolutely. And Max, you were continuing, because I know that you're doing this. You're doing this actually on the ground, right? Like,
Yes.
you're actually getting people. You're actually, and you could tell us more about this. You're actually talking to young people and getting them to vote. Now, it's past the time of registration, of course.
Not
but
not everywhere. Not everywhere.
Right.
And
Michigan has same
can
day.
they still?
There's a number of places that have same day registration even through November 5th.
Right.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Right.
And so, tell us what you're doing on the ground. Are these the type of questions that you're dealing with, and you're getting people to actually register and vote, like, on the same day level?
Yes, of course. But I want to say, I agree with almost everything that Lisa says. Strategically, it's our method that's different. I am not fighting with someone and trying to explain the abstraction of Congress and tax system. I move on in these 7 days to the next person who doesn't have an opinion. I never got a check from Donald Trump, an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old who was too young to work or be involved in voting in 2020 when we suffered from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It is a game of lowest hanging fruit, low information that isn't going to put up a fight in these last days. And when we're talking about margin races, here's what folks don't remember. The presidential races were won by 9,000 votes, 10,000 votes, 11,000 votes, 20,000 votes. Districts in 2020 were won by 6 votes in Iowa, 133 votes in California, 119 votes in Long Island, etc. That's like the gospel choir, the glee club, the football team.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are talking to people, we're trying to make sure that we have people, young people at those margins who could double that margin. It's not asking for a lot. That's your dorm room. That's the people who live on your floor, wherever you live. And that's really doable. It's not millions. And so, yes, there are people who will. I only gave this story about people who said Donald Trump gave me this money. I'm not spending the time in these 7 days correcting the record and explaining tax system. I'm moving on to another person and say, and you will get 6,000 from Kamala Harris and 1,400 restored in the next, because they care about working families and poor people. And we see the movement. And here's an interesting, I texted this to you, Jonathan. Oh, and by the way, congratulations on getting engaged.
Thank you. Shout out to Ashley Renee.
Project 25, which we haven't touched on, is a thick, ridiculous, frightening book. But it has things that affect people and can move the needle. So here is something that folks don't know. On page 5, which I only just learned of Project 25, there's a stuff about banning porn. That besides ending abortion access and other things, they want to ban porn. When you share that information with young men, that the same way with abortion access, the Republicans want to police women's bodies and have the doctor know when she is going, what her results are, and the status for her pregnancy, etc. The Republicans also want to know what you're doing when you're watching porn in your room. And they want you to stop, or they become illegal. And so they can actually go to your ISP and see you have downloaded wherever or are watching whatever porn site you're watching. We see a 3 to 3.5% lean towards the progressives because of banning porn is not acceptable to a lot of young men who are 18 to 28.
This is the type of thing that you could only do in a very targeted way, because it's not like the presidential candidate is going to come out and say that. Okay.
Oh, but yes, that's our value added, targeted messaging.
No, I know, Lisa. I saw your smile. I saw the look. I know you want to say something. Talk to me.
Well, it's hard to say, but women watch porn too. So the minute you tell me there's no more porn, I'm not voting for you either. Because I get once in a while I might have to watch a little porn and get ready. I'm 60 now. But all jokes aside, well, that wasn't a joke, but jokes aside, saying it jokefully. So like I get what you're saying, Max, and you're saying, hit them where it makes sense. So you may not get them with the thing over to the left, you may not get them with the thing over to the right. You're saying when you look at, for example, Project 2025, when you look at, let me just dissect things that might matter to you. So you can't throw the whole 900-page book at them, but you're saying, let me pull out this excerpt, let me pull out that excerpt, because this might matter to you. But if you didn't look through the book, you don't have it. I did it for you, and I'm going to tell you why this thing might matter to you. And your issue was, well, let me just throw the porn thing out there. Like, dude, you can't go in your bedroom with the Vaseline and the porn. You gotta, or the baby oil. You gotta, if you want to do the Vaseline with the porn, you gotta go for Kamala Harris.
You got it. And the thing is, I love your honesty and frankness, but you have to, there was no porn when I was a kid. However, but you have to be real. When I was a horny teenager, this is very real to me and to them.
Yeah.
And you have to reach them where they are.
You gotta do that. You gotta do
Maxim, look too far. We done jumped the shark now.
No,
I add something that matters to me. I know it was a lot.
Hold on. Let Brittney jump in, and then
I was gonna say, I think I to bring it back to something for real. I think in Project 2025, just talking to folks about the stuff in there about former foster youth or people aging out of the foster care system. For me, that was something that I was talking to young kids about or young people about, because that's a real population I think we don't talk to enough or talk about enough. And those people know. Those folks aging out of foster care are usually of what demographic? How overwhelmingly are we representing the foster care system? Right. So what does it mean to really not give us the benefits that we need that other people are seeing, right? So that's the thing. I hate to be, brainy about it and bring it back, but for me, that's the population I fall in. What happens when my parents are in prison, or what happens when I'm 18 to 24 and I'm getting out of foster care with what? Mm-hmm. Right, and so there's some real things in there that speak about that. Mm-hmm. And
let me add this, and this is where I was hoping you were going, Max, but you went to a place that I just was not ready for. Right, there's this population, and we had it on this. We had a hell of a show with some young journalists who work for Public Square Amplified. Mm-hmm. Right, and this is a group of 18 to 28 years old who are obscenely upset about Gaza and the genocide that's right in front of our face, and a Democratic administration that is arming it and enabling it and gaslighting the world in the process that can cost Kamala the goddamn election. What about them?
Okay, so two things. One, Black people of all people should understand we don't like people policing our bodies, male or female. Owning our bodies, controlling our bodies, police engagement with our bodies. And that affects both of those conversations. One, abortion access, banning porn. Second, people that connect with us, like people in the Middle East. But here it is, because I am data-driven, and I'm trying to make sure that we're on the right side of history with this election. Here's what I know. A lot of folks are focused on what happened at Columbia University. Columbia University is not most universities in the country and in the 7 swing districts. And I focus also on low income and young people of color. So when I'm thinking about community colleges, trade, technical, and vocational schools, Gaza does not even make the top 25 of issues.
That part. Can you say that part again? Can you circle
for the people in the back? Can you say that for the people in the back?
For the people way in the back that you got to reach over a couple rows to get to, say that part again.
Well,
one more time.
Because it's an important issue because it has been used as a lightning rod, but we do polling. And this is not an issue in Nevada, Arizona. It isn't rising to North Carolina.
But it is an issue in Michigan, though, right? I thought everyone was just worried about Michigan.
But again,
and that Michigan can be lost on this.
But Zaid's question, right, was about what I'm thinking. Is if I got you right, Black young people. We're
Okay.
talking
Yeah.
right,
Right.
Michigan has a different demographic, right, than other places. We have to understand, put it in context. I understand the issue, but we're talking about the election, 7 days, and this is not driving in all the ways we're talking about Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona. This is not top of my group of 18 to 29-year-olds.
Correct. And I want to say this, and let me just piggyback on that for a second, because I'm from Detroit, born and raised. Okay, I love New Jersey. I live here now.
What up, though? What up, though?
Listen, let me be honest. So people are worried. Let me tell you something. We saw the establishment itself lose Detroit specifically because it banked on the Black vote so much so that when you start looking at Detroit post 08, like our issues were like we start moving away. We saw Bernie win Detroit. We saw, in the governor's race, we saw the establishment lose to Shreve Anadar in Detroit and all the urban towns around it. I was on that campaign. I was on Shreve's campaign, by the way. And I think there's something to be said, and I appreciate that point because honestly, the war and all that carrying on it's important. It's important for those of us who have the privilege of time and reading and leisure and all of that. But if you ask my niece what's important to her, getting in Wayne County Community College for real, for the phlebotomy program, so she can make more than what she's making at the gas station or whatever other odd-end job she's working at 20 years old, that's important to her. That is important to a young Black Detroiter.
Can you just break down
getting into the program where you can work at Chevy and Ford and not be on the low end of the totem pole? That's what those people care about.
And can you break down just Detroit? You said that Detroit lost, the establishment lost the Black population. Can you just break down what was that? Like break down a little bit more. Like what was the establishment focusing on versus what they needed to focus on?
I mean, I think New Jersey can take some notes, But so in 2018, I think what we saw was you have now Congressman Shreve Anadar, who lived in Ann Arbor at the time, ran for governor. And this is after 2016, where, folks were sleeping on the Black towns. We weren't really seeing as much presence. We just knew we were going to get the Detroits of the world and all of this. And Michigan delivered Donald Trump right to, delivered them right on in a handbasket. And then after that, we started to see some real disenfranchisement or people kind of pulling out. And 2018 was a real example of that, where you had a man who came to Detroit and was like, look, I grew up poor just like you. I'm rich now, but I understand you. I understand what you're going through. I understand what it means to be you. And campaigned at every crevice and corner and crack of the city and included the urban towns around it. Because when you have cities like Detroit or it's like if Detroit is Newark, then you have Highland Park, which is the East Orange, and Inkster, which is like a Irvington, and all of that. We beat that pavement down, and in less than 2018 till now is less than 10 years. He had been a state rep since then, and now a congressperson, because those people locked onto him and were like, "Look, you understand us. We appreciate you doing the work," and it put the establishment in a position to where you have to now come with it. Now we're seeing the governor wear Cartiers, and now we're seeing the governor understand Big Gretch and all of those things and that rhetoric, because Detroit was a big example of like, we care about the real issues, like the bread and butter on our table issues. And I think we need to stay focused there with young folks, young black folks. Now, I can't speak for nobody else because I'm not, but young Black people, it's important.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
I think that there's one thing that I would add. First of all, I agree with everything that everybody else has said.
And by the way, this is Chris Randall. He's one of our co-hosts. Also welcome Hakeem Green. He's our ambassador to hip hop. Hakeem Green is an amazing artist, rapper in his own right, legend, works with KRS-One frequently, brings him to our city, and does 24 Hours of Peace in Newark. Legend himself. See him on all these podcasts now. Welcome back to the show, Hakeem, and welcome Chris Randall.
The thing that I think is going to come down to, first of all, Ms. Durden, I'm going to call them MAGA monsters from now on. You just changed my parlance forever. I'm rocking with that forever. That's it.
Mega monsters.
So
That's it.
yeah.
Yes.
So Baba Zaid, I think that this election, much to your point, Brittney, this election comes down to the BPP. Now, I'm not saying Black Panther Party, but even though my mother was a member, it comes down to broke, poverty, and powerlessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you gonna stop me from being broke?
Yeah.
How you gonna pull me out of poverty?
Yeah.
How do you change me from being powerless?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what Brittney said, what I think makes Jonathan Austin's heart beat fast, having worked with him for over a decade, this is what I think it is. And Brittney, this was to your point. When I was a child, Brittney, just like me and you are around the same age, there was a television show called Are You Smarter Than a
Fifth grader?
Fifth grader. You know why? Because the average American reads on a fourth grade level.
Correct.
So the vast majority of people have no idea what is the connection between my poverty in Newark or Baltimore, where I'm from, and what's going on the Gaza Strip. They can't do it. And even though my big brother, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's from Baltimore, wrote the message, if you see who's mad at him, it ain't people that look like us.
Right.
Because we don't get it no way.
Right.
So there's that. The fundamental point in this election, even to the point of what you've been saying, Max, about being data driven, and what everybody's saying about slivers of this and small directions, is that we are talking to groups of people who have wrestled with for several generations, several decades of being broke, of being impoverished, and being powerless. Black men are mad because we've been broke, we've been in poverty, and we've been powerless, and nobody speaks to any of the things that actually met them. That acronym, nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have not heard every speech by Madam Vice President, but I don't know if I've heard her use the word poverty a whole bunch.
Well, I think that I'll jump in and say this. Black women are the poorest. Black women and children.
I was gonna say that's
Black women and children are the poorest people on earth. So
for sure.
Since we're talking about numbers, we like data. Let me finish. We like data, so that's a fact. And then black men come a little bit above us, but but black folks in general, yes, we are in the poverty scale a lot higher than white folks. However, let's not just bash Kamala Harris, because I have never, and one lady said this on a podcast, Latia, which I said, oh girl, I forgot to say that. I have never in the history of voting since I've been 18, I'm 60, heard any politician, local or national politician, say, I'm out here pumping for the poor. They say middle class. I've not heard anyone, I'm just saying, generally speaking, I've not heard anyone, you might be because you're local, but I've not heard anyone, the mayors of cities, I've not heard governors who are running for offices, I've not heard any, presidents. So Kamala Harris is not doing any, I didn't hear Obama, I heard nobody ever say, I'm stomping around here for the poor. However, what I do know is poor people we have the biggest numbers. We can't do it right now, but when she wins, to Brittney's point, we have to start making a shift, because it's not just, I'm tired of people who are lifers in politics. I want there to be term limits for every political position. I'm sick of lifers because you're not doing anything. And I need younger people to come in because we need to have fresh ideas. And then I need for them to, if they don't do what we need and push our agenda like Project Freedom, which is an agenda, go on Project Freedom, go in, all the things are there. We have an agenda, Project Freedom. If we put Kamala Harris in office and she doesn't push Project Freedom, we fire her next time. So we have to be real clear about the data. We have to stop thinking that we just get in the car and it drives itself. That's not how that works. Right. You have to drive offensively and defensively. So we can't afford not to tell them what to do. We're their boss, which is why I said, no, you didn't give me you didn't give me money. That's my money. You didn't give me no stimulus package. That's our money. All the taxpayers' dollars is our money. Unemployment is my money. When I get food stamps, it's my money. When I get welfare, it's my money. When I get Section 8, it's my money. We all contribute to the pool. It's our money. Stop all that divide and conquer. They're collecting this. That's the problem. It's our money. It's our country. And they're there to do the job we want. So once we get her in, hold her accountable. And all these old heads who've been there a long time, Maxine Waters and all them, Cory Booker and all them, get off your butts and do the job. But right now, we've got to put someone in the job who has the best opportunity to give us to be able to push them to do what we want. We're not going to be able to do it with Donald Trump. We can't do it.
Right. And Ms. Lisa, let me just say, having been a legislator here, and, you know, I opened up when I said I don't think I heard the word poverty enough, because honestly, one of the things that I found is that when I used it seemed like I wasn't, it seemed like folks were saying, oh, you're not mainstream enough, or you need to grow some more. And I'm like, I just think y'all are out of touch with what's really going on.
Correct.
Like,
Facts.
I think there was a conversation about me being, and I was like, most of the time when I'm running, and President Obama, I was just watching him on Instagram talking about how we get in these rooms and you think it's all that and folks got it figured out. And the more of those rooms I go into as a former foster youth, I only just wanted to be normal. I felt like if you grew up with two parents and they were yours and all that, you're normal. And then as I began to go to the NYUs and sit in the rooms, if you will, I'm like, these folks just as crazy and
exactly
as everybody else. The folks told me, you know, the statistics say I'm not supposed to be here. I see why you don't want nobody like me here. You don't want to be accountable enough.
Exactly.
Preach.
So, Brittney, you said also earlier.
That's what I'm saying. You don't want to be accountable enough. And then you'll tell somebody like me, oh, they're radical. They're on the radical side. No, if you ask, most of the time they're okay with getting the people who usually turn out for them, and they don't want to activate the people who they really need to hear.
But that's because they can't. That's because they can't speak the language.
Yeah, and that's and they there's a respectability politics that we have to talk about and establish this established mess of a whatever it is. We have to talk about that. It is 2024. It is 2024. People are playing, they're playing, and that's why I say, even if it is our money, when you vote for somebody, they still have to make the decision to do the right thing by the money that you gave them. And I always tell people, I don't care who your party boss is or whatever, it's just you and that vote. And I don't care if you're speaking to an empty room. I cannot stand when I hear an elected official, having been one myself, cussing everybody out across the state. I cannot stand when I hear an elected official say, but we just don't show up. The room is empty when we having a meeting. So what? They did their part. They took off work, they stood in the line, and they circled your name. That's all they had to do.
Right.
And I think that we have to, that's why the accountability of term limits and all of that stuff is important, because
that's exactly
you gotta know this ain't your purse. This is my purse. This is what I earned. And I want us to get out of that mindset. If we could just change the language and start sending people to real trainings on how to be politicians of today, we'll be all right.
Preach, sis.
Max, you're about to jump in.
Well, I was going to underscore what Brittney said. So when she started, when you started, you talked about the wealth gap. And there's a fabulous book written called 15 Cents on the Dollar, which is the wealth gap between Black Americans and white Americans. And we have, as you said, we have to deal and center poverty. There are, however, Bishop Barber, who is the new iteration of Martin Luther King, who is centering the Poor People's Campaign. Right, and so
William Barber,
and I think so, Brittney, I am with you, but I'm a little broader because I think that there are lots of good people who are different, who are allies.
That's where we all disagree with you, Maxim, right there. That's where we all disagree.
I'm sorry, let him finish, Mr. Randall. Let him finish.
Because in my experience, right, and again, I want to put the barricades here. I'm talking about 18 to 29. I am not talking about boomers. I'm not talking about the silent generation and Gen X. We have a lot of issues with older folks, but I am very, very optimistic about 18 to 29-year-olds, which is what you said, Lisa, because they don't come at this. They hate binaries. They are gender fluid. They reject Democrat label and Republican label. They labels. They hate to be labeled, and they form coalitions in a way. that when I was 18 to 29, we did not do that.
Mhm.
And they could be at a trans rally and be a straight man. And they could be at the climate change and yet they're fighting for ending gun violence. And that is something that I absolutely honor and appreciate. That is very weird to older people because they never did it. You could not be a black woman
You got a lot of that
and be
right here.
feminist if you were into racial justice when I was in college. We've come a far, far way that you could have all these different intersectional identities. And so, Brittney, I agree with you, but I think I feel more inspired by bringing lots of other people because of their intersectional proclivity into this conversation.
Right. I think the thing that gets lost though in that, let me tell you what gets lost in that, which bothers me as a person that's in this age group sort of. Right. I think that the intersectional piece is important, but there's a thread of anti-blackness that exists in all these movements that I
That
don't
part.
like. And I remember being the BSA president when I was at NYU, and I remember having to have conversations with people, and it's more like anti-African Americanism more than it is anything. There's anti-blackness all across, but I think in these movements we have to begin to open space, and that's why you'll hear some young folks hold space when they start these things and say, "I want to call out anti-blackness." You'll always hear that no matter what the rally is, because they are understanding that you can't have a movement and leave blackness out because it gets lost as we start to move in this little new little fluffy space. And it's natural when you live in a country that's built on that. And then those folks who have the privilege of having the dream, not saying privilege, but those folks who get to see the dream for what it is, which means I get here, I work really hard, I do whatever. Even that like anti-African Americanism that exists in that is a real thing in these movements. And I think as we go that way, you can't really say we have to be broader, because talking about anti-blackness in each and every movement is in fact hitting the nail on the head, because we always get left out. If you're talking about climate change, something as simple as street trees in urban areas is a real thing that federal governments have to address, because it addresses air quality and all of that. I'm an urban planner by trade also. If you're talking about you know, LGBTQIA plus folks, the violence against black folks, black. If you talk, you insert it, there's some anti-blackness that has to be
all across. Yep.
All across, and including in our immigrant populations across the diaspora.
Right.
I won't allow that to slide and be like, oh, we're just gonna be broader. You can't. If you're talking about urban poverty, you still have to address who disproportionately are living in inner city areas, even still today in 2024. If you're talking about six-figure and middle class earners that are black, how many of them have been that way for generations? So what is the possibility that they'll go back to poverty? If any family emergency, anything. So I just don't want us to miss that part.
Can I say, can I jump in?
Yes, Hakeem Green, our ambassador to hip hop.
On that point, when Vice President Kamala Harris was with Charlemagne, and she was asked a question if she would do anything specific for Black people, everybody kind of criticizes her because, allegedly she said she wasn't going to do anything for Black people, but that's not what she said. What she said was, whenever we do anything specifically for Black people, everybody else gets to benefit.
Correct.
So, I think that part she said got lost, and we need to really focus on that. Whenever we address the issues pertaining specifically to Black Americans, African Americans, everybody else will benefit.
Correct.
When you focus on other communities, Black people always get left out of the pie.
Yep.
That's a brilliant point.
Just a slight pushback. Like I love Harris. I'm voting for her. I'm giving money every time I can. But she actually did, like I saw the clip multiple times. It was based on a question that was asked, what would you specifically do for Black people? Elizabeth Warren said, you have to do specific things for Black people, because if you don't, they'll be left out. Harris said the opposite. She said
And
she
then
would
what
do
did
things
Warren?
for everybody.
And then when Warren said that, what did she say she was going to do? Did she say specifically?
Yeah, she said a lot of specific things for Black women's health.
I don't
That
recall her
whole
saying anything she was
specific.
doing for Black people.
Yeah. Warren had like lots of. I'm not
Because
trying to relitigate 2020, but I'm just correcting like what was said there. So that was the opposite. Now I'm supporting Harris. I'm all down all that other stuff.
Opposite, John. The whole clip is never played. She said, whenever we do anything specifically for Black people, everybody else gets the benefit. That's the point that gets left out.
I heard the opposite. I heard she
It's
said
not
every time we
mutually
do things for
exclusive.
everybody. Yeah, I heard her say every time we do things for
We
everybody.
don't have to battle this whole thing.
But
Let's not battle this. Let's not battle this whole thing, because guess what?
Fair
Let's not
enough.
battle this whole thing, because here's what's
We're
going on.
voting for it.
Nobody's ever asked Donald Trump what he's going to do for Black people. Nobody's ever asked Donald Trump what he's going to do for Black people.
Absolutely.
Nor has he ever offered what he's going to do for Black people.
Correct.
He's not even said what he's going to do for white people. He said, I have a concept of a plan.
Correct.
So he ain't doing nothing for no people but his boys. But his boys up at the top, the top billionaires, the top 1% of the people. So stop trying to make her perfect in her language. Sometimes you can't nail every little. We like a Woody Woodpecker on her.
I'm just saying. I don't care what she said in 2020. I know who I'm voting for. I know who I voted for. Right.
Listen, I can't. I know I ain't got no win with the MAGA monsters. Let me just tell you that right now. Let me just tell you that.
Exactly.
Just give me
But
the credit
I think
that's my quote. Just give me the credit. Like
listen, absolutely. But the thing I think the reason I think that I think I agree so much with Brittney is the same people who were storming the Capitol on January 6th was voting for Obama in 2008.
Correct. But you know what?
The leader of the Proud Boys ain't white.
Right.
Ted Cruz is a Latino. His name is Rafael.
Right.
Ron DeSantis, we don't know. We don't know uncertain. Right. DeSantis don't sound like, Andrew Johnson or Andrew Jackson. But my larger point is, at the end of the day, the same reason what Hakeem is saying and what Brittney is saying that I agree with. The only part that's where it gets real ugly, and I think this part that keep you up at night, Jonathan. You take your glasses off. This part to keep you up at night. Anything that does benefit Black people is the reason why other people don't support it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yep.
You're right.
100%.
If you can prove that it's going to disproportionately or in any way impact Black people positively, everybody else is pulling out, and that has been the Republican strategy every day, all day.
Every day.
Oh! You don't want to stop recidivism, because then it's going to be this big, scary Black rapist that's going to show up and take you. We off on that. Oh, you don't want affirmative action because you're going to have some unqualified buck bastard taking your job. Oh, we out on that. You don't. Whatever the issue is.
The United States.
Now,
yeah. So that's where I think it gets weird. Is that the thing about anti-Blackness is it destroys all coalitions. Everybody break apart and go to their racial silo when you start talking about that.
Yeah, and I think
clap for that.
I clap to that because I feel like I also feel like, to be honest, I'll say not too much on any of us that are not white, because to me it will always be the fault of white supremacy and racism. It will always be that, because when you produce, everybody's responding to what this does to us differently. You have the Uncle Tom people who be like, well, I ain't like them Black people. And then you got folks who are saying, well, if I attach to Blackness, that means I'm less than, and I'm over here trying to get mine for my family, and we came here for a specific thing and all of that. So I think whites internalize racism and internalize oppression, internalize white supremacy. It comes out differently in everybody depending on what your story is. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'll say, yes, I can address you, right? I can address you if you're a non-white person who's acting like that, and still also know that my larger enemy is this white supremacist system that we're all dealing and surviving in.
Yeah.
And that's where I try to do that, but I also recognize the privilege in that, because I have the bandwidth to be able to express that and all of that. But people on the ground every day who are trying to survive and meet their tabletop kitchen cabinet issues, that's not what they're thinking about. And
facts.
I just don't. I get so frustrated, and I'm not gonna say their names because these are the first people I voted for. I swear to God, you know, in 08, 09.
I know who you're talking about. I hear, yeah. That election that you was the first, yeah.
I just be
Him.
so mad because I'm like,
Him.
I get it, and I'm grateful, and I thank you because when my father got out of prison, the same year he was standing in line voting for y'all, and I got it, and I get it. But at the same time, in 2024, this respectability thing, it has to go because people really are worried about, like, I hear you, but I don't, because you're not me either. You're not like me either. And how do I get to where you are? And what does that language even look like when I'm so far from you and you look like me? Because I will be honest with you, at 33 years old, I've never had a white mayor. I've never had a white council person represent me. I've never been represented by a white state legislator. I'm 33. And so people have questions like, what is going on here? I am a 33-year-old woman who has never been represented by public office by a white person.
I will say this.
We talked about that.
I will say this about Obama. I'll say the name. Now, I'm just since we're talking about data, I'm talking about just tabletop issues. Now, again, people's own parents aren't even good. The people who have us wrong us. So we can't act like strangers ain't gonna wrong us. Your own mom and daddy wrong you.
That's
so
what I mean.
No, not you or anybody listening. We all come from some dysfunction, but we still love our mom and daddy. So let me just get to 2008, and I will say this. There are many things that happened from 2008 that I loved and I was pissed off about. But I will say this. If Obama wasn't in office in 2008, I'd be dead now. I'm going to tell you why. In 2008, I was on a project called Brick City. I was a producer on a docuseries called Brick City. When I finished Brick City, I got a job working as a producer on Soul Food Junkies. I worked on Soul Food Junkies full time. When that job was over for a 1-year contract, I was unemployed. I was unemployed for 2 years. Why was I unemployed for 2 years? Under the Obama administration, he let me put food on the table because he kept giving us extensions, and I kept getting extensions. I was on unemployment for 2 years. If I were not on unemployment for 2 weeks, I would have lost my home. I would be in the street. There's many things. That's just one example of many things. So that by itself put food on my table. And I have never had a president as long as I've lived that have done that. I've been voting since the age of 18. So that alone gives him kudos. Now, were there things I did not like? Of course. But again, I don't like everything about my own sister. I don't like everything about my own daddy. I don't like everything about my mama. But I'm not going to sit there and bash my mama, bash my daddy, bash my sister because they have a couple little issues. I love Oprah, but I'll get mad at her sometimes. But that's my girl. So I'm just saying, let's get real here. Let's fast forward here. Fast forward. If it were not for people like Biden, I would be dead from a condition that's treatable. I have hyperthyroidism. Before they did that whole thing, not for old people, but also medications like methimazole, I would have had to pay $500 a month for 30 days. Now it's $22. So I would be dead of a condition you can treat. So let's be real clear on some stuff that I can single issue stuff. So let's be real clear. My survival is food, shelter, clothing, and other. College is not survival. I need food, shelter, clothing. So we got to be real clear on, let's get down to the weeds of it all. We can't start getting all flowery with it to say they didn't do these things. So Obama did a hell of a lot for Black folks, and others benefited.
Oh, no. Let me be very clear. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that.
So fast forward, let's be real focused on how we can be critical of these people too, but also not to kick the baby out with the bathwater because one or two things didn't work out, because the lion's share of the reason why many of us survive are people like Black Obama, and still put the Bunsen burner under his butt to do more. Absolutely. But we know that Donald Trump didn't care about us. I lived through Reaganomics. I was in college doing Reaganomics. That was trash. I was there when the levees broke. The baby Bush didn't send nobody there for days. He didn't care about Black people. Let's be real clear.
No. I get. Let me say this. Let me just say this in it there. So I actually happen to be one of the advocates for Young Invincibles, where we negotiated the parts of ACA where former foster youth got to stay on Medicaid till they were 26. So I want to be very clear that I understand what you mean about the everyday things. And I had to be in Virginia helping them flip their state to get Medicaid expansion, helping them understand that, like,
I'm on Medicaid now.
If you don't expand Medicaid, your poorest people won't have health care, and we're doing that on the ground. So I want to be clear about the policy piece. What I'm saying is the language part of that. So you see how what you just talked about, that real time, God rest Congressman Payne. So he constantly talked about Medicaid, you know, lowering Medicare costs and lowering medication costs and all that. But what I'm saying is, to the everyday person, I want us to get out of the mindset that when we talk about these issues, we have to begin to talk about in the way that Mr. Thorne is talking about, to folks who can hear that. Did you know? Because when we're at the rallies and we're seeing the rallies, your story that you just talked about, that's not what I'm hearing. The
Preach.
about keeping people on Medicaid until they're 26, having done that work and caught the flu, probably the COVID before it was a thing at 23, enrolling all these people in Obamacare as a 23-year-old woman, all of that is not, those types of stories are not what we're seeing. And that's why the information gap is what it is for people who don't have time and who can't consume it at the same rate that we can. And that's why I'm saying, while I love these people, if I see them on TV one more time talking about it from this real pie in the sky sort of here, it lets me know that you aren't talking to the people that really need to hear you, that are affected by these issues the most. You're talking to your respected base, who you think you're going to turn out more because you ain't worried about those folks. And that's my problem. It's the language.
I want to go back to Maxim.
Amen.
To Maxim Thorne. What do you think about like the that respectability gap? I know we're coming to a close. We're almost at 9. We're going to be finishing up, but I wanted to have you speak on that.
I want to do this in a way that's centered. So my organization, we center fighting anti-Black racism because of the truth of what Hakeem said, and it's not mutually exclusive. When it benefits Black people and fights anti-Black racism, it benefits everybody. Period. Because we have suffered a lot, probably the greatest of any other people. So centering fighting anti-Black racism is the core of our work. But I also come to this that we have to approach this in a way that brings people along and gets us the greatest number of allies so that we can win. And so I hear the pain and the passion around people like DeSantis and all these other people. There's a lot of pain and passion around. We interviewed Anita Hill at the DNC in Chicago. So there's a lot of pain and passion around Clarence Thomas and Robinson running for governor in North Carolina. And they're both Black. So we have to think that how do we reach across? Because we have a lot of agreement. If we do center and we don't allow people to divide us because of, pervasive racism, which was, of course, the card that Trump was playing at that rally at Madison Square Garden. He was hoping to split the Latino community by proximity to whiteness. So the Dominicans would start hating on the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans and the white Argentinians and Central America and Latin America, etc. And hopefully it will not work. So we can't play into it either, because we have a lot of shared issues. And that then addresses the questions you asked me. So we have a lot of people who are friends and allies. And I love what you said, Lisa. None of us are perfect because we have different lived experiences. But we cannot only push one. We have to allow all our voices and all our accents, whether it's Newark or Detroit, or Charlotte, or South Carolina, or Miami, because we have to do this together. None of us is going to win alone, right? And so when I hear you, Brittney, I get your spirit. I get where you're coming from. And maybe because I'm older, but I've learned, and by the way, I was a senior VP for the NAACP, so Black enfranchisement is dear to my heart. But I also know we need our friends. And one of the things that hurt me, should hurt all of us, what you said, Brittney, you have not had a white governor. Well, we had a white governor, white senator in the U.S. Senate or congressperson and legislator. And things are still tough, right? And you also made a distinction between what Elizabeth Warren offered and what people said Kamala Harris offered. So things are better under various people of whatever color. And class is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But we are different classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to make room for voices who are very poor or low income and voices who are not.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear Malia Obama as much as I want to hear you and anyone else. And we have to have that kind of heart, even if it rubs us the wrong way and you dress a weird way and you are more feminine or less or more masculine. We have to have a way in which we're bringing people together, or else we're not going to win. And what I love about what Hakeem said, and I want you to hear me, Jonathan, because I don't agree with you.
No.
I don't, because it's not mutually exclusive. It is okay if it helps Black people to say it helps everybody. It brings a lot of people along. There are more white poor in this country than there are Black poor or Latino poor or Asian poor. There are so many poor white people. But when people say it's, as you said, or Chris said, when you say it's going to help Black people, then they kill it, even though it's helping way more white people than Black people.
Yep.
So I think it is strategic, not racist. It is strategic. And I would say what she said. When I promote affirmative action, it is giving more white women access to jobs, even though it's helping Black people. And when I reduce the cost of medicine like insulin, it is helping way more white people, even though it's helping lots of Black people. Because that's how our country works and how you bring people along. It doesn't mean that we can't be angry about the prevalence of racism.
Right.
But we are speaking the truth, that these things that help Black people always end up helping white people more.
Yep. I agree.
And we have
that's scary as hell. That's scary as hell what you just said. That's scary as hell. For sure. Lord Jesus. Lord have mercy.
It's
true.
It's true.
This has been a really good conversation. Right?
That's the whole thing.
And I know we're run out of time, but we'll be continuing these conversations in the days ahead. I definitely want to thank
next time we're on the air.
I do have one question for everyone yet, though. We have one last question. I want to thank everybody.
Question, and it's only one answer.
But we got to be on Team Green. So for the people who are for Lisa, Max, and Brittney, who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
You're rocking right now.
And two of the three of you have been on our show before.
I gotta go with Queen Latifah. Who you calling a bitch? UNITY. UNITY. That's how UNITY.
You get a pass. You get a pass.
You know I do. Of course I do.
I do. You gotta say me.
I'll tell you why. And Chris, Jonathan, and Baba Zaid can testify. I'm one of the few rappers, MCs, hip hoppers that speak to the issues we're discussing in my music.
Yep.
I'm one of the few who consistently create content around the discussion that we're having right now. And the fact that more people don't know about the great music I've been putting out is just shameful. But that's
fair. That is fair.
Hakeem, you know the answer to that, right? You know the answer to that, right?
Make sure you hashtag Hakeem and I'll get it out there. So I'm going to go off of politics because I think, or maybe I am going politics about love. So Lauryn Hill. I love Lauryn Hill.
Oh.
I love Lauryn Hill.
That's a good one. Good one, Maxim.
Sorry, you in Jersey. You in Jersey.
Yeah, I'm in Patterson, New Jersey.
Yes. They're right up the highway.
I say the same person every time I come up here. And it has been Tupac every time I've been up here.
Oh, Pac, okay.
But I also want to give some kudos to my homegirl Glorilla because she has been on repeat all week for a while. I don't care what we think about the lyrics and what they mean and all of that. She's just been doing her thing, and I'm proud of her for that.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming on. I'd like to thank all of our guests tonight. Our guests on the Payne Report. Thanks again to Eric Payne. Thanks you to Leroy Jones for coming on, Mayor Dwayne Warren. Thank you to Dr. Joseph Jones for coming on earlier to talk about your book. And also thank you again, Lisa, again, personal hero. I will never forget the thing that you did, like punching Tucker Carlson in the mouth. He deserved it. He needed more of it.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch.
Exactly.
It was beautiful to watch.
Right? Absolutely.
Okay.
Right? Thank you to good friend. We need to talk more, man.
Yes.
Brother Maxim Thorne, good friend for many years, and Brittney Claybrooks, glad to have you on again. Always enjoy your conversations. You were so incredibly insightful. Layers of deep knowledge. Very, very much. Always appreciated. Hope all of you will be back on All Politics So Local more. Thanks also, and thanks Hakeem, Ambassador to Hip Hop, coming up. You are a part of our show as one of our co-hosts.
Welcome
thanks
back,
everybody.
Chris Randall.
Please.
Yes, welcome back, Chris Randall. Right, it's been a long time, brother. It's been a long time. Zai, you can take us out. Tell us what there is that we need to know.
Streets matter. We're in the streets tomorrow, 12 o'clock, Lincoln Memorial. Even though Lincoln wasn't all that.
Oh God! Oh
He's
God!
a Republican. He freed the slaves. What are you talking about?
Baba Z is a mess, but that's true. It's true.
Fair.
He lied.
12 o'clock.
Fair.
Okay.
Trump,
All right,
man,
and
that's
Amen. Amen. Let's hope it comes out well next week. Let's hope that our girl wins.
Let's hope Max is right. Let's hope Max is right. We'll see next week.
Let's hope. Yeah.
I haven't been wrong so far.
Yes,
go ahead.
I trust you, Max. Your numbers guy. Max, your numbers guy. I trust you.
Yeah.
And also,
it's been a pleasure, sister.
That's a book. That's a good book in the Bible, huh, Max? Numbers.
Well, thank you all for this week. Until next week, all politics are local. Be safe.
See y'all later.
Get in them streets. Vote. Give money. Do whatever you can.
Vote.
Yeah. Wait, y'all gonna stay on for a second? Oh, never mind.
When we
Oh
vote,
wait, I'm trying to end the
end
show
the
right
show.
now, and my computer is
gotta
not
get me
letting
off?
me do that. Hold on 1 second.
I was gonna say something.
we vote, we
now.
win.